Thank you, Hara M. Habab, and welcome everybody to another Wu-Sabat Outformation class, UK, from All Eyes in Egypt, Midlands and the North. As Hara M. Habab has said, this is Lost Records of Time Revisited and the Tuli Papyrus, the final part for this session today. Hopefully we'll close this one up. Don't know if we'll probably get through everything maybe a little bit shorter today, so obviously be prepared to ask questions from any aspect of both of the books as it relates to today's class. Okay, right, so let's move forward. Okay, so we're going to open the class with a cultural expression referred to as Ba'h B'ah Yaanuwn, the affirmation. So I'm going to say that in the Sabaic language and then translate that into English for full and proper understanding. Abdoi Kaleh Namazurat Wu Fakur Ame Kasam Un Empa Pa'ut Anuki Jawef Pa Ashuk Empa Pa'ut Wu Kale Ashuk Kawun Jawef Neya Anuki Kasam Un Empa Pa'ut Wu Pa Pa'ut Kawun Kasam Un Em Neya Anuki Ame Pa Pa'ut Wu Pa Pa'ut Wahu Ame Neya Wu Pa Pa'ut Kawun Wahu Ame Neya Nakuk Kadur Najo Ame Kasam Un Empa Pa'ut Wu Khabub Ame Mushachas Un Nakuk Kadur Kawan Kale Pafef Nakuk Tayur Jawef Pa Pa'ut Ame Wase Ame Tayarni Kawun Lakei Bakoy Jawef Pa Pa'ut Anuki Abed Bin Afashni Pa Pa'ut Kawun Anuki Pa Pa'ut Kadur Nakuk Kadur Pa Pa'ut Amul Nakuk Amul. Okay, so let's translate that back. So we said begin all prayers and thinking as a part of the all. And we said I am in the divine love of the all expanding, and all divine love is in me. I am a part of the all expanding, and the all expanding is a part of me. I am one as the all expanding, and the all expanding is one as me. I can succeed as a part of the all expanding and fail as an individual person. I can be all that I want in the all expanding as long as my want is to stay in the all expanding. I am never by myself. The all expanding is I am. The all expanding can, I can. The all expanding does, I do. So that was, to say, a culture, part of our culture called Ba'h B'ah Yaanuwn, and just to help us to set off the vibes in a positive fashion, connecting with our ancestors and with existence and natural nature. So if you join us for the first time, this is a short induction to the Zoom platform. So you've got several options here on your menu. So if you need to adjust your audio settings for any reason, then to the left, you've got that option there. So if you need to make adjustments, can't hear us correctly, etc., then by all means select that option. Here and to your left, you've got the chat facility. I need to update that. But the chat facility, that should say select everyone in the options that you've got there, so that if there's any messages which are not questions, it could be feedback, it could be any different types of things, but not questions, then select everyone as the option, and that'll be posted in the chat for everybody to be able to see, and we'll respond accordingly. If you've got questions today, and it is an interactive session, so please feel free to ask questions. If there are things you do not understand, don't sit there in ignorance. Feel free to ask questions, and I'll do my best as a student teacher. My name is Nabab Kaknihes to answer your questions today. So you've got two options. You can raise your hand, and that means basically coming in live to ask your question. You'll get a message at the appropriate time when prompted. to unmute yourself. And basically you can come live on the microphone and ask your question directly. If you've dialed into the meeting today, then it's *9 to raise your hand, and then when prompted, so Harat M. Habab, who's the facilitator today, will ask you to unmute yourself, and you press *6 to do so. Once you've got the ability, or once we give you the ability to unmute yourself, then you do have the ability to mute and unmute at will. So we ask you just to stay muted once you've asked your question, so not to disturb the rest of the class with any background noise. Now, if you don't fancy coming through live, then you can put your question in the third option here, which is the Q&A section, and put a written question in, and then Harat Ibn Habab, as today's facilitator, will ask that question on your behalf today. Okay, so that's the Zoom platform. If you're live with us on Facebook, some people maybe. So if you're viewing on Facebook, if you want the full interactive session, we're not always monitoring the Facebook chats. If you want the full interactive session, then by all means use the link in the chat to join us on Zoom. It takes about less than 30 seconds to register. Then you can join us on Zoom. But if you're happy to stay on Facebook, then it's a view-only platform. So if you're asking questions, then we won't pick them up until after the class is finished. So if you want to ask questions, you've got questions, then by all means join us on the Zoom platform. Okay, so we've got a couple of poll questions, and we do have a poll quiz today. I'm sure many of you will be happy to know this information. So we just want to check. Okay, sorry, just checking. Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can still hear you.
Can you see the screen?
I can see your picture, but I can't see the normal screen that we normally have.
Okay, so just try it out. Okay, you should be able to see the screen now.
Yes, I can see your screen, the polling screen.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so yeah, we're just going to run a quick poll. Working.
If you can hear me, Nabab Kakni Hess seem to have lost your audio. Just in case you're wondering what's happening, it appears that there is a technical issue that is being dealt with. We're taking care of that right now. So if you just bear with us until we deal with it, class will continue shortly. We apologise for the break in class, but we're doing our utmost to resume. So if you just stay with us, we'll continue as soon as we can. Thank you all. I mean, while we're here, if you'd like to put in a few requests from the sayings of Dr. Malachi Z while we await the commencement of today's class, you're free to do so. There you go. That didn't take long. Number 78. Number 78. Right. It is very simple to make things complex. That's number 78. It is very simple to make things complex. That is so true. Let's see. We have number 55. 55 says, think nothing is mine and then realize all is. 55. I think nothing is mine and then realize all is. That's number 55. Any more? If you'd just like to put those in the chat, I'll read them out for you. Just dealing with a slight technical issue. As soon as it's rectified, class will continue. So there you go. Just pick a number, anyone, between 1 and 575. Or I'll pick one at random. Right, here we have number 105. Don't wait for the dirt to clean your house. Number 105. Don't wait for the dirt to clean your house. That's number 105. Okay, somebody has asked for number 333. Number 333 says, if you can't change it and you don't like it, don't look at it. 333. If you can't change it and you don't like it, don't look at it. That's number 333. Come on. There are a few out there. There's quite a lot left over. Just pick a number. Thank you. Number 101. 101. 101. Number 101 says, and this is from the sayings of Dr. Malachi Z, put your trust in only those who will lose as much as you when things fail. Put your trust in only those who will lose as much as you when things fail. That's number 101. Right, number 299. 299. If I hurt you, I hurt myself, for we are all one family. That's number 299. And we have number 289. Number 289. Number 289 says, take each step in this day with caution. Look at those around you. This is number 289. Take each step in this day with caution. Look at those around you. That's number 289. Number 499. 499 says, I don't accept things as you do, and you don't accept as I do, yet we both accept the same thing. 499 says, I don't accept things as you do, and you don't accept as I do, yet we both accept the same thing. And this is from the sayings of Dr. Malachi Z. It's a small scroll that I have here with some of his sayings. There are other scrolls similar, but this is the one I'm reading from today. which is scroll number 114. I'm not sure it's how available it is, but I like to read from it sometimes. What do we have here? We now have number 522. Okay, 522. 522 says, keep your faith to yourself, not the facts about it. Number 522, keep your faith to yourself, not the facts about it. That's number 522. And then we have number 18. Unto man is giving to give charity of the things he gains, but the charity of Yahuwah Elo is right knowledge. Unto man is giving to give charity of the things he gains, but the charity of Yahuwah Elo is right knowledge. That's number 18. Let me just see if the issue is sorted as yet. Not as yet. So we'll just carry on until that's dealt with. For those of you waiting, we apologise for the delay, but we're trying to deal with it as quickly as we can. Thank you for your patience. In the meantime, we have the sayings of Dr. Malachi Z. York. Just put any number you feel between 1 and 575 in the chat, and I'll happily read it out for you. Some real words of wisdom here. Right. We have number 290. Number 290, and then we'll read number 244. Right, number 290. Say you care more, and more people will care more about you. Number 290. Say you care more, and more people will care about you. Just answering a message there. Right, we have number 244. Number 244 says, there is no such thing as I should have or could have. If I could have, I would have. Number 244, there is no such thing as I should have or I could have. If I could have, I would have. For those of you wondering what's happening, we're just having a technical issue which is being dealt with as I speak. Hopefully, Nabab Katnihes will be on shortly. In the meantime, for those of you, wherever you are, Facebook or Zoom or whichever platform you're listening on, thank you all for attending. Class will start shortly, or commence shortly, I should say. It's already started. Thank you for attending. In the meantime, I'm reading some of the sayings from the Dr. Malachi Z York scroll number 114. And if you feel there's a number that you'd like to put in, and I'll read it out for you. Number 36. Let's have a look. Number 36. Number 36 says, I am sent to you with a torch of light in this dark road of life. Stay close to me. This is words from Dr. Malachi Z York. It says, number 36, I am sent to you with a torch of light in this dark road of life. Stay close to me. That's number 36. Number 11. Thank you for putting these in the chat, so we can at least move things along rather than sit along in silence. We'll just read number 11. Divine truth never conflict. Divine truths never conflict. Isn't that the truth? Divine truths never conflict. Number 6. Number 6, thank you for that. Number 6, this world is divided into two people, the righteous and the unrighteous, and it is always the righteous that do the dividing. This world is divided into two people, the righteous and the unrighteous, and it is always the righteous that do the dividing. How about that? That was number 6. Any more? All right. 408. 408 says, women are men with more complaints. Number 408, women are men with more complaints. Number 39, let's have a look. Number 39, let's see. Number 39, from the sayings of Dr. Malachi Z York, all that glitters is not gold, but gold glitters. All that glitters is not gold, but gold glitters. That's number 39. Number 64, they're coming in thick and fast now. Number 64 says, you can't fall off the floor. Number 64, you can't fall off the floor. Number 53. Number 53 from the sayings of Dr. Malachi Z York. Here we go. Number 53. Because a doctor has a name for the condition doesn't mean he knows what it is. I read this earlier. I think it's still good for those that are still joining. You may not have heard this before. So number 53. Because a doctor has a name for the condition doesn't mean he knows what it is. That's number 53. And then let's have a look at somebody's chosen number 20. Number 20 says, each fleeting second is growth and change. You can't take away from it or add to it. 20. Each fleeting second is growth and change. You can't take away from it or add to it. That's number 20. Number 22. Light can only be found in darkness, which is why I have come. Light can only be found in darkness, which is why I have come. Some wise words there from a master teacher, Dr. Malachi Dr.York. That was number 22. That's number 22. So let's go to, somebody's asked for number 23. 23 says, Yahuwah Elo has given you 2 eyes, 2 ears, and 1 mouth. He expects you to watch and listen twice as much as you speak. Yahuwah Elo has given you 2 eyes, 2 ears, and 1 mouth. He expects you to watch and listen twice as much as you speak. So that's number 23. Somebody has asked me to read number 12. Number 12 says, to overstand El Elo is to overstand the positive and negative of every individual. You cannot love Yahuwah Elo if you do not accept the positive and negative in every individual. You are not applying the principle of the creation, because obviously he accepts the agreeable and disagreeable from us. That's number 12. Let me just read that again. To overstand El Elo is to overstand the positive and negative of every individual. You cannot love Yahuwah Elo if you do not accept the positive and negative in every individual. You are not applying the principle of the creation, because obviously he accepts the agreeable and disagreeable from us. Number 10. I love what you are inside, but fear what I see you doing with it. 10. I love what you are inside, but fear what I see you doing with it. That's number 10. The reason why I'm reading from the Sayings of Dr. Malachi Z is that we have a technical issue, and it's being dealt with as I speak. So once again, class will continue as soon as the issue is dealt with. Thank you all very much for your patience. Right, I've just had some of the latest information. I have it here that the should be up and running in about 10 minutes. Should be up and running in about 10 minutes. So in the meantime, those of you still joining, thank you. And the technical issues are being dealt with. So my name is Haraim Habab, the Defere Hatta, and I'm a student teacher of the master teacher, Dr. Malachi Z York Okran, and class will continue today as soon as we deal with a small technical issue in about 10 minutes or so. So thank you all for your patience. Number 233. If you are called things that you are not, you don't have to worry about responding. Number 233. If you are called things that you are not, you don't have to worry about responding. That was number 233. For those, somebody just asked, did I read out number 10? I did, but I'll read it out again if you missed it. Number 10 says, I love what you are inside, but fear what I see you doing with it. That's number 10. Right, let's have a look. Number 44. Let's go here, number 44. Right. He is love, and love is he. He loves you, so you are in love. This is number 44. He is love, and love is he. He loves you, so you are in love. Thank you for your contributions there. We'll take a look at number 55 that's been requested. Number 55, I think nothing is mine and then realize all is. Number 55, I think nothing is mine and then realize all is. Number 66. Number 66, let's have a look at number 66. Right, number 66 says, people don't spill on dirty floors. People don't spill on dirty floors. That's number 66. Number 9. I'm surprised somebody hasn't asked for number 9 before. Let's go to number 9. Let's have a look at number 9. Right, number 9 says, where are we going? Where we came from? Where have we come from? Every place and no place. To this place, so come, let's go. 9, where are we going? Where we came from? Where have we come from? Every place and no place. To this place, so come, let's go. That's number 9. Right. Number 19. Number 19 says, they steal, but you take. Number 19 says, they steal, but you take. That's number 19. And number 99. Number 99. Once you have reached your goal, then realize that your goal was not made hard enough for you. Number 99. Once you have reached your goal, then realize that your goal was not made hard enough for you. And for those of you just joining, I'm reading from a small scroll from Dr. Malachi Z York, from the sayings of Dr. Malachi Z York, while we await a technical issue to be dealt with. We should be back on shortly with Nabab Katni Hess while that's being dealt with. So I'm just reading from this small scroll in the meantime. So as I said before, there's quite a few of these sayings that haven't been chosen yet. So just feel free to just put something in the chat while we await the commencement of today's class, which is the final part of a 5-part series. Thank you all very much for your patience. It appears that we'll be handing back to Nabab Katni Hess. I'll just see how we're getting on. Right, let's just continue. Number 440. Number 440 says, Next prayer, don't ask for anything. Next prayer, don't ask for anything. That's number 440. Number 27, let's have a look at 27. Right, number 27 says, and this is from the sayings of Dr. Malachi Z. York. Number 27 says, man's final aim, divinity. I'll hand over to him. Thank you all for your patience. Oh, okay. Just need to continue for a little longer. A few that were not read out. Let's have a look here. Have I read out number 64 already? Let's go to number 64. Let's have a look. Yes, I have. I think I've read that one already. Number 63. Number 63 said, it seems no one is looking until you make a mistake. That's number 63. It seems no one is looking until you make a mistake. Isn't that the truth? Number 72. From the sayings of Dr. Malachi Z. York, number 72, says, one does not learn by thinking out loud, but by listening. Now, class, one does not learn by thinking out loud, but by listening. Now, class. That's what that says, number 72. Okay. Let's see how we're getting on.
All right, let's try again. Bit of a strange day today. So let's try again. I'm going to press the magic poll button. If it messes up, I'm going to have to rethink what we need to do. Okay, right. Appreciate that, hurrah, Ba'h for holding down the fort, so to speak. And welcome back, everybody. A few technical difficulties to manage on the fly. So I've launched the poll for the sound. Can you hear me over the background music okay? So if we just confirm either affirmative or in the negative. So can you hear me over the it's usually the chant, but today Tamarain Gold or music in the background. Some of you are maybe on a device where you need to swipe left or right to get the poll screen. Okay, if you cannot hear me, okay, then please just give some feedback in the chat. Ending that poll then and moving on to the visuals. So can you see the visuals? Okay. So just very quickly confirm that for us, please. Okay, so then that poll. Again, if you need to see that screen, you need to swipe left or right. The polls are anonymous, we're not keeping those results. Okay, so a quick introduction and then we'll get into what we need to discuss today. As I say, we are the United Sabians Worldwide. The founder of our organization is a person by the name of Dr. Malachi Z, York Okran, born in Ghana, which is in West Africa, Takoradi, in June 26, 1945. And he was born by way of an important sacred feminine by name of Mary Abba Akran York, also known as Fatima Miriam, as you can see from the screen. Birthed March 10th, 1929. And has transitioned to become one of our Salafu, which is the Misbatia or Sabaic way of saying ancestors, on August the 4th, 2012. This is her in the Sabian, I suppose, the clan mother attire. So we, as a culture, we were always matriarchal before, as I say, we became changed, one might say, to become patriarchal with the introduction, I suppose, of the monotheistic religions in the last 6,000 or so years into our culture. But its origins are matriarchal, similar to the systems that we see.
I really do apologise, but there seems to be like a wind noise in the background as you're speaking. Like it sounds like a fan, or it's like a wind noise that wasn't there previously.
Okay, one moment.
And it's gone now. I can hear the tamarind gold and the wind sound is gone.
Right, hopefully that's disappeared in the background. Right, so Mary...
No, it hasn't. No, it hasn't.
Hasn't?
No. Just for a brief moment, it did disappear, but as you started speaking, it returned. And it's there now as I'm speaking. It almost sounds like an open channel or something where there's no... It's just the noise coming through it. And the Tamarayan backing music is playing without any issue. That's fine.
So is it still there?
Yes, it's still there, but not so bad. It is there, though, still. It's a very low sort of... like it almost sounds like a fan or something, but very, very low. And it is there as I'm speaking to you now. And now it's gone.
Right, I can't see what it is. Just turn the volume down a little bit.
I mean, I can hear you above it, but it's just there in the background as you're speaking.
How is that? Is that any different?
No, it's still there. I mean, like I said, I mean, I can hear you clearly, but I'm listening on a small set of speakers, so maybe it's not going to be as prevalent. But if you're listening on on something a little more substantial, then it's probably sounding a little more intrusive than what I'm listening to right now. But I can hear it still.
All right, I think. All right, I think you're gonna have to read out a few more things. Hold on, let me log out and log back in.
I'm quite happy to do that. Yeah. I don't mind doing that at all. People seem quite happy to.
I love the sound of your voice at the moment. So.
Okay.
Class. Okay. All right, I'll be back.
Okay. Right, as some of you will be aware, we're still having one or two technical issues. In the meantime, we can continue. There are some other scrolls, with the similar, some very wise words from the master teacher that I'll be coming with in the future. But currently, I'll be reading from the sayings of Dr. Malachi Z. York. Let's see. Let's have a look. I'm going to look at the ones that I have not read out, which were not read out previously before the Bobcat came in, I think. Let's have a look. Right. One of them was number 45. Number 45 is, if you take a spoonful of water out of the ocean, it is still an ocean. Drop it back in and it never existed. Likewise, man is a spoonful of water out of the ocean. He is a spoonful of El Elo out of the Elohim, and his eventual goal should be divinity, to be dropped back into that state, that pool of energy which has not been defined yet. That's number 45. I think after that came 54. Let's see how the Bobcat's getting on there. All right, I'll continue. Number 54. Right, 54. Plant a good seed of love in this garden of life, and many disciples will grow from you. That's number 54. Let's have a look. Okay, right. Okay, it appears that Nababkak is returning. I'll hand over to him and see how we get on.
Right, how's that now? Is it any better or is it the same?
No, it's still there. It's like a low, so it sounds like almost like the sea or the ocean, like just a whooshing type noise. Like it sounds to me like a channel that's open, with nothing going into it. It just sounds like a whooshing sound.
back now. Is it still there?
I don't seem to be able to hear it right now. If you just continue, we'll see. Because I'm listening on quite small speakers, so it may not be as... But it's not as prevalent as it was before.
Okay.
If anybody else can still hear it, can they just put it in the chat, please?
You can still hear the background music, okay then?
Yes, I can hear the background music all right.
Okay, all right, let's see.
Yeah, people are still hearing it, but it's low, they're saying. And it's gone now. And now it's back. It's intermittent, that's all I can describe it as. It appears that some people are hearing your voice clear and the music very clear. You know, maybe we can, persevere with it.
All right, well, we'll keep the feedback going and see what we can do. I'm not sure what's caused.
Yeah. If it is getting obtrusive, just let me know in the chat, please, and we'll see what we can do. But we'll persevere with it.
Okay, yeah, Gremlin Day today. Gremlin Day. 3rd of October, Gremlin Day. So we'll note that for this particular session. So Mary Abbott Dr.York, the mother of Dr. Malachi Z, Kabina York Okran. Now, although we are matriarchal, obviously the sacred masculine is still equally as important. 360 the circle for the females and 360 squares for the males. And Al-Hadi Abdul Rahman Al-Mahdi, born 1922, unfortunately transitioned or was assassinated in 1970 from a great royal family, the Al-Hadi family, which we'll touch upon a little bit today as well. But yes, he's Dr. Malachi Z, Kabina York Okran's father, and is linked to Mustafa Muhammad al-Mahdi of the Sudan, who many know in the world today as the Mahdi, but may not recognize him as that title. As we've said many times in this class before, a master spiritualist, and to say defeated the British and the Turks, or drove them out of Africa in a similar vein to many of our past pharaohs, driving the Mukasu, the Romans and the Greeks or Europeans back into Europe, who sought to invade Afaf Araye Ka'au, Africa, in those days and times. Only on the planet for around 40 years, but had, as I say, a significant impact. And so that lineage still ties back into, if you go down that lineage all the way back down, even though it's, I suppose, expressed in Islamic tradition, it ties back into Napata and Meroe, so pre-dynastic ancient Tamaray or ancient Egypt. Now, so on that side, so we talk about the master teacher, and we talk about the renewal of our story every 24,000 years, which is similar to the circumference of the planet Earth, which is 24,896 miles in circumference. It expands and contracts. And the reason why we as a people, first world people, do not dig up bones of our ancestors to find out our story is simply because our records are etherically kept, and the forces of natural nature, in fact the feminine forces of natural nature, at the appointed time, birth leaders or teachers amongst us to come and set the record straight. And certainly that at the renewal of our story, which is to say at the end of the cycle, then the ancient Egyptians referred to a being by the name of Amun Nabab Raye Achakhta, they also referred to that being as Tahuti, so that was maybe the more popular name that he would have been known by, Tahuti or Tahutwi or Thahutwi. But Amun Nabab Re Akhtar, so that's a vehicle or a vessel. Yeah, the Hindus say avatar. Those in the Islamic degree talk about Ilah Mutajasid, so that's a vehicle or a vessel that allows our ancestors to speak to us to convey certain information that we need to aid our transformation, or one might describe as the ascension journey. So our ancestors, our Etheric ancestors or higher ancestors, who the Egyptians referred to as the Natharu, where they get the English word nature from, it means overseers, have left a pathway in our genes, as well as etheric self, of what we're supposed to be doing, fulfilling our potential, or what one may describe as achieving perfection. And as you see, the ION at the end of that word means it's an ongoing process. Yeah, so we're growing into or becoming something. And so, as well as connecting with no thing, you understand? So we're no thing and something at the same time, or to describe it another way, energy and matter. In order to teach us that, the physical vessel is used, as I say, because it is necessary to understand the people, live amongst them, grow amongst them, in order then to develop a solution for them in this day and time, to cure them from the mental illness that they are suffering from. And so that combination was necessary. So 1963 is when if the books first started to be written, but the official, I suppose, launch of the organisation was 1970. And as I say, that first combination, because Wu-Sabat came in Wu-Sabat is the spiritual science of the Nagaru, that came in 63. But as we've said, say a few times in this class before, it was too heavy for the people. You understand the language of it. What it was dealing with, the people were not ready for it. They wanted to worship things, they wanted to be in a religious context, faith and belief overstood. They wasn't ready for what our ancestors had to give. So in order not to be called a liar in the future, a statement was made: I came giving what you want, so you would learn to want what I really came to give. And so the culture of Wu-Sabat was spoon-fed in a way that was palatable, but given it in the terms of the first 3 degrees, or the 3 frogs as they describe it in Revelations: Judaism, Christianity and Islam. And the first combination, or dual combination, you had a Twi, the Jedi or the Twi, you see there, the dual combination necessary was here. Isa al-Hadi al-Mahdi and the Ifrit being by name of El Khadir, who they call the Green One, overstood. Now, okay, let's turn that down. Is that better?
It is. It is. It's for me. It's right in the background. I can barely hear it, but some people are really hearing it loud. So
okay,
it's way in the background as I hear it. Barely audible, in my opinion. But it's perfect now for others. Maybe we just go on with it as it is. Nawab Kaka, I cannot hear you. If you're speaking, I cannot hear you.
Okay, so I was speaking, I was on mute. So yeah, so it's Gremlin Day today. Gremlin Day today. So don't eat after midnight. Now, so El Qadir, that combination for the years of 1970 down to the year 2000, but actually slightly before. So in 1996 was the release of a book called The Holy Tablets. And this book was the bridge between religion and reality. So it showed basically where we had been given those monotheistic teachings in various different forms, particularly those of us in the West, but also world over as Nagaranadu or Negroid people. And effectively, that book showed us where those stories came from, as well as giving us information about what was to come. So 19 chapters, and this was the famed Book of Lamb that Honorable Elijah Muhammad spoke about, which is an Arabic letter. And when in the old pictures that you used to see the master teacher in the Sudanese Islamic style dress, he used to have the staff of a shepherd or crook, and basically if you turn that staff upside down, it makes the letter lamb. And every basically chapter of that book started with the term lo. Obviously, it's tying back in, as I say, to certain information, or what one might describe as prophecies of how things were to play out in this end day and time. Understood? So that combination was necessary. But when we started now to move out of what he came to give and what he really came to teach, then we started to move, as I say, into the second half an hour where the devil's rule, so to speak, had ended, when the nines aligned, and we were now into our stuff. Understood? And so then, therefore, a new combination was necessary, and that came in the form of Dr. Malachi Z, Dr.York, and the physical being, and the Ifrit being known as Ba'h B'ah Yaanuwn, bringing in, as I say, the actual facts and Patarak. And if you remember, when we, or some Sabians may remember, that when we used to do the old prayer system referred to as the Ashutat system, which had not the 3 positions that you see in Islam today, but rather the full 9 positions, understood, there was a term that we used to say, Ashutat Pa Taruk Ila Pa Nitirat, and basically that statement basically translates as prayer is the road to the deities. Understood? And when you look at the term Taruk, it is the same term Tarak. Understood? But obviously now in noun form, clearly with the double A. So when you saw it with the AU, that was in its verb form, action form. But with the double A, it's now tarak, understood, in the noun form, in the form of a book, something that was tangible. So we didn't even realize that we were calling out for that way of life. We were calling out for that solution when we were using our prayer system, which is the art of talking without listening, and meditation goes alongside it, which is the art of listening without talking. Understood? So we manifested that solution in the form of Patarak, our way, or the guidance, actual facts within factual information, and then the master secret. So that symbolism was to be uncovered in this day and time for full and proper understanding to aid our transformation. Understood? And so these beings, or Ifrit beings, and it sometimes sounds spooky and crazy, etc. However, that's our story. However, we as Sabians, what we accept as fact is that we are descendants of our ancestors, i.e. so the people on this call, each of you, by way of the fact that you're here, must have had a mother and father, and they had a mother and father, etc., etc. And all of that is what we accept until one goes through the process and confirms everything else that doesn't relate to that. You understand? By way of facts, confirmation, etc., research, asking questions, so on and so forth. So we've been teaching you a series of classes, as I say, based upon the lost records of time and the Tuli Papyrus. So you should have, if you've been able to join us previously, a decent understanding. I think we've done a reasonable job of explaining to you how the problems that we faced and the issues of how the records got lost. Primarily, the records got lost is because the true records of who and what we are in actuality in the genes, and in the genes of the female by way of the mitochondrial DNA. And how we have lost the knowledge of some of those ancient secrets and ways of doing things is simply because of what's been described as the lesser mysteries of those monotheistic religions. And so, people talk about oftentimes about drug dealers and different things. Obviously, certain types of drugs obviously poison the physical body. But the question was asked many years ago: what about the preachers, the imams, understood, the Kohanes and different people of that nature, who are feeding bad information to the mind? You understand, in terms of poison, because if the mind's the most powerful force within the universe, or mental force within the universe, then something that's going to poison the mind is obviously going to be detrimental to everything, because it affects one's perception of how we view the world in and around us, and certainly the wider universe on into the dual, multi, and omniverse as a whole. So it was necessary, as I say, as part of a long list of teachers who have come along, given us a piece of the story, and we note here these particular 7, each bringing a piece of the puzzle or the story. But the issue can be sometimes is that the way they've tricked us in those religions is to, when certain terminology or titles are used, it creates a form of complex around individuals or the person, and us as a people have got into the habit of tearing down leaders and teachers, etc., based on maybe the morality that comes or has been taught from those religious books. Understood? So you see the term there, don't make me holy so you can find holes in me. So you tend to find elevating people, and then, hey, you know what I mean? The person does one thing wrong or whatever the case may be, and then, hey, you're not that divine person, you're not this or you're not that, and then tear the whole thing down. And then we can never get to build our nation. Understood? You look at a country has many different types of people in it, and they're not all perfect as you describe it, but it's still part of the growth and evolution of how things come around. People are not, we have a positive or agreeable side to us, and we have a disagreeable side to us. That is our nature. You understand? And just because somebody says they call themselves a title or a high title, that doesn't mean that everybody else is not that. Understood? So you have to accept your own divinity, so to speak, and your own leadership powers. It's not that we're following a leader, we're alongside, we're all leaders, you understand, on a journey for growth. However, the fact of the matter is that we needed to be taught how to rebel against the status quo or the system, because it wasn't designed for us in mind. And so we needed those skills to rebel against that type of authority that was keeping us suppressed. And monotheistic religion today, in actual facts, Partarak, Master Secrets, as I say, it points out to us that basically these religions simply make us subservient to other races. So unless we have our own stuff, we can never be number one in our eyes, and we can never connect. Our lens of how we see the universe, how we connect with natural nature, etc., does not have to go through the lens of the mind of a European male, which is what we're getting when we're picking up a Bible, for example, or the first 5 books in terms of the Torah, if we think about Judaism, or an Arab mindset, which basically comes from the Bible anyway, but they're through the lens of an Arab mind when we are Africans, and we were here long before any other race was here on the planet. Yeah, does that sound racist? Well, not in the wrong racism sense of the suppression of another race to further your own race, but rather racist as being proud of who we are, and understanding, as I say, that whatever they believe, who created us, well, we were here first, so our connection to that must be the closest or the strongest, because they created the environment and they created us to suit the environment that we were born into. And all of us come from the first set of people, the Sands people in South Africa. Now, because it is Gremlin Day and we've started a little bit late, I'm going to move all the way forward to where we need to be talking about today, because I've gone offline. I need to click through, so avert your eyes if you find it annoying. Now, you'll be glad to know that we have a poll for you based on the class 2 weeks ago. So if you just joined us or you missed that class, just answer in the best way you can. I'm going to launch that poll now. So basically it's 10 questions, so hopefully not too difficult. If you're on Facebook and you join us on Facebook, let me get to the right section and I'll put those questions on screen, because you won't be able to answer directly. But if you're in the class today, then you can work through those questions and then we'll go through the answers together. So there's 10 questions. I'm going to give you, they shouldn't take too long, I'm going to give you 10 minutes to answer those questions, and then we'll crack on with what we need to talk about today. As you can see, very extensive amount of slides that we've gone through for this class. And I would say this, we've left a lot on the table, so it's still worth getting those various books, Lost Records of Time and Tuli Papyrus. So there's a lot there to get into, but hopefully you would have got a better understanding from what we've been teaching for the last 4 classes. Okay, so this is where we're at. So if you need to mute me out because I'm reading the questions out for those join us on Facebook, just for concentration purposes, then please feel free to do so. Right, so question number 1 is, what is the English translation of the word Ptah? And the options are third eye, first eye, the enlightened eye, or divine eye. Yeah, so what is the English translation of the word Ptah? Yeah, third, first, enlightened, or divine eye. If you're on Facebook, you can put the answers in the chat. Just put 1 and the answer that you want to attest to, and or write it down, and then when we go through the answers, you can see how many you scored out of 10. Question number 2. Which is the correct maxim of Yaanuwn? Yeah, so which is the correct one? First will be last, and last will be third to go. Last will be first, and first will be last to go. First will be last, and last will be first to go. Or first will be 9, and the last will be 6. Yeah, so which is the correct maxim of Yaanuwn? Okay, for those answers, you've got 7 minutes left to finish the answer to those questions. Let's move on to question number 3. The name Tuli of Tuli Papyrus is Egyptian in origin. True or false? The name Tuli of the Tuli Papyrus is Egyptian in origin. True or false? Question number 4. Which should say maybe Egyptian. Which Egyptian female ruler protected their people from a potential Roman invasion? Was it Cleopatra V, Cleopatra II, Cleopatra I, or Cleopatra VII? So was it Cleopatra V, second, first, or seventh? Next question. The Thule Papyrus is about the records and observations of which Pharaoh? Select two answers. So two of the following answers are correct. Thahuti Masas Pa Athan, Ptolemy, Manan Khapap Reye, Tahuti Masas Parthalan, Ramesses II, Thahuti Masas Pa Wahan. So select two out of those potential, so we've got there 6 answers. Nice and easy for everybody, nice and easy. Okay, next question then. What was the great communicating material used to cover many pyramids? Was it gold, quartz, platinum, any monatomic elements, or a rare form of carbon fiber? So gold, quartz, platinum, any monatomic element, or a rare form of carbon fiber. Okay, less than 5 minutes to answer the rest of the questions. Okay, next question. So select the correct genetic composition of individual Nagarnadu needed to open up the gateway. So the correct genetic composition of these individuals, less the golden child, Nagarnadu needed to open up the gateway. So you need to have a little bit of Sabate knowledge there. What does Nagarnadu mean? And the combinations are XY, YX, XX, YY, XYX, YXY, XYX, YXY, or is it YX, XYX, YY, YXY, or XX, XYX, XX, XYX? Yeah, so which combination, genetic combination, excluding the golden child's genetic composition, is needed to open up the gateway? Okay, 8. What was the evidence in the Thule Papyrus that indicated an opening of the gateway successfully occurred? English could be a little bit better there, but what was the evidence in the Thule Papyrus that indicated an opening of the gateway had, probably better to add that in, successfully occurred? And the answers are that the then pharaoh ordered the records of the event to be kept. That should be the crafts, or maybe that crafts. That crafts appeared in the skies. Strange creatures rained from the skies. That there was a female ruler and pharaoh appointed. So the evidence that in the Thule Papyrus that indicated an opening, successful opening of the gateway. Yes, pharaoh ordered the records of the event to be kept. Crafts appeared in the skies. Strange creatures rained down from the skies, and that there was a female ruler and pharaoh appointed. Less than 2 minutes to answer the remaining questions. So, what female ruler and pharaoh was a Mukhnashtat hermaphrodite? It's a multiple choice question. Yeah, so tick as many answers that should apply. Yeah, so tick as many answers that should apply. Yeah, so what female ruler and pharaoh was a Muhnashtat? Yeah, hermaphrodite. Tick as many answers that apply. I should have probably put that in the question, but tick as many answers that apply. Question 9. And then the final question is, and this is a missing words one. So, Pa Muknashtatu and Pa Muknashu have the ability to what? And who do they reach out to? Yeah, so they have the ability to do what thing, and then who do they reach out to? So answer 1, vibrate themselves twice and raise their body frequency, and they reach out to Atunreye. Levitate and reach out to Amunreye. Teach others how to open their third eye, and they reach out to Anun. To give birth to golden children, and they reach out to Atumreye. Yeah, so what is their ability, and who do they reach out to? Okay, so that's the 10 questions there. So I'll give you 30 more seconds, please, just to wrap up and answer those questions. Just do your best guess. It's not there's no marks recorded in terms of individual scores. Looking at what the group score is of most interest. Okay, so let's go back to the first question so we can work through the answers, if I remember what these are now. Okay, I see a few shy people there. Come on, work through the questions. Yep, it's a class. It's not an edutainment session. Let's test your knowledge and see where you're at with everything. Okay, I'm going to end the poll then. Okay, right. So, let's see what these answers are. So, the first question was, what is the English translation of the word patar? So, tricky one. I think the most popular answer. Go ahead. Your hand's raised. Go ahead. Hara Mhabad, did you want to say something? Okay.
Nababkak?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, your connection seems really choppy at the moment. Your screen just disappeared from my screen, but it seemed like it auto connected. But your audio was it was a little bit. You sounded really strange, like a Cylon robot for a while. I'm just keeping an eye on that. If you want to continue, I'll just let you know if it gets any worse.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. It is Gremlin Day today. So I'm going to have to expect these difficulties for whatever reason. Okay, no problem. Continue to just do that. So, let's say, what is the English translation of the word patar? The answer there is divine eye. Yeah, so divine eye. Now, third eye, you could have used that one. You wouldn't have been far off. But divine eye is the correct translation. Yeah, divine eye. Next question then is what most people said third eye or first eye. The answers there. So question number 2 there out of this, which is the correct maxim of Yaanuwn. So let's look at the most popular answers. Were first will be last and last will be first to go, or first will be 9 and last will be 6. The correct answer there is one of the most popular ones there. So first will be last and last will be first to go. Understood? So that's talking about the Caucasian or Mukasu race, only been around for the last 6,000 years, and their ancestors, the Pleiadians and the Draconians, who are responsible in various forms for their creation. The Pleiadians set a time limit in their genetics called in the telomerase of their genetics, which, as I say, placed a time limit or expiry on when their genes would end. And so that's why that statement comes from. First will be last, so that's us, first will be last, but the last who came along last will be first to go out of the major as opposed to sub-races. Now, let's see where we're at here now. So next question is the name of the Thule papyrus. So here, and so question number 3 is the name of the name Thule of the Thule papyrus, is it Egyptian in origin? So most popular answer there states that it was true. Yeah, it states it was true. The answer there is false. The correct answer is false. Yes, so the Thule papyrus is attributed to the person who allegedly discovered it by the name of Alberto Thule. Understood? And we discussed last week about that name, Alberto. Remember, the Order of the Alberts, and this particular individual was out of the Vatican. So, Egypt is this horrible, terrible place of pagans, but the Vatican, or in the city of the Vatican, they have one of the most expensive or extensive Egyptian museums on the planet today. Understood? And so the Thule papyrus is a document or papyrus that they had in their possession. Understood? And Alberto, as you know, ties into the Jesuit priests, famous one by the name of Alberto Rivera, who left the Jesuits and converted, I think, to another sect of Christianity. It's quite a famous individual who sort of released a lot of the secrets, allegedly, from that particular order, including the fact that the Vatican was behind the creation of the religion called Islam today. So Thule papyrus is not its name. Understood? Thule papyrus is not its name. That's the name of the person who allegedly discovered it. You understand? It's its origin, so it's not the name of it. That's just more of a nickname to us. And we will speak about the name of the individual a little bit later on in the answers that we have here. Now, answer number 4 is which Egyptian female ruler, Egyptian female ruler protected their people from a potential Roman invasion? So the most popular answer was Cleopatra the First, and the correct answer is the last one, which nobody got, Cleopatra the Seventh. So Cleopatra the Seventh is the one, as we discussed in the last class. She, at an orgy at Herod, of King Herod, as they called him, King Herod, he had 9 wives, but they added in Cleopatra met Mark Antony, and she was added as a 10th wife to hide their relationship. And she was a master. She had mastered certain arts through the order of Hathor, and basically, what's the correct way to say this? But basically, she blew Mark Antony's mind with her sexual powers, so to speak, and then kept him under the thumb, so to speak. But that was a sacrifice for her, significant sacrifice for her, because the Romans obviously were the world power at that particular time. And so by her relationship with Mark Antony and Julius Caesar, protected Egypt from being invaded at that time by Rome, and potentially a lot of people getting killed. Yeah, so she done, like, you think about many of the women when people were kidnapped. This is something obviously within our genetics and genes. Many women were raped, had to sleep with their Mukasu masters in order to protect their families. So we can never forget that as a race, as a people, from what was done to us, and that sacrifice, a true sacrifice that was really made in that regard. So certainly a stand-up sacred feminine in that regard. And obviously, as you can see, Hollywood has tried to take her image and who she was, and obviously, as I say, tie himself into the vine, so to speak. Now, remember, they had a child, which you find in the Bible in Colossians 4:11, named Cleophas, or Jesus Justice. And remember, because it was illegal for the Roman triune, so Mark Antony would be considered a Roman deity, and it was illegal for him to marry a non-Roman woman, as would have been the same for Cleopatra. It would have been a violation of their own tenets for her to have married outside of their culture. And so Cleophas was the son of a deity in the form of Cleopatra, who was a ruler and therefore considered a deity. And then Mark Antony, as part of the Roman triad, he was considered a deity, or triune, was considered deity. So they birthed the Son of God. Yes, and at 13, he wasn't ascended to the throne because he was rejected by both the Egyptians and rejected by the Romans. Understood? And therefore, as I say, he then went to India and studied in India, and that's where he became famous, known as various titles, but one of them is Saint Isa. Understood? And learned spirituality and many of the different arts. So, say, in certain Masonic schools, they know about this Saint Isa, and that's the Jesus that they're referring to in their stories. The one of the three Jesuses in the story is that Jesus, son of Joseph and Mary Magdalene, Bar Jesus, which means the son of Jesus, and then you've got Jesus Justice, as I say, one of the three Jesuses. Yeah, so a lot behind that story, but that's that kind of old school doctrine. But yeah, the sacrifice of Cleopatra the seventh should be well remembered and known by us. Okay, so answer number 5 now. What was it? I was supposed to give you question number 5. The Tawny Papyrus is about the records and observations of which Para Re'aha or Pharaoh, selecting 2 answers out of the potential 6. So popular answers here are Tahuti Masas Parthalan and Ramesses II. So here the correct answers are Manan Khapap Reye, so that was the true name of Thutmose III. So Tahuti Masas child, Parthalan III. Yes, Tahuti Masas Parthalan. So, excuse me. So here we see the 2 names here. So this is his true name, they say, and this is obviously the name he was known by. Understood, as obviously his the son of his father, who was also known as Tahuti Masas Parthan, understand, who was the son of Tahuti Masas Partwahan, the first and the second there. So that's why again that name Tawny Papyrus is not the proper name, because it was the pharaoh Manan Khapap Reye or Tahuti Masas Parthalan who ordered the recording of that particular event to be kept in the records of our libraries, to be kept for, however long those records could last. Now, question number 6. What was the great communicating material used to cover many pyramids? Here the most popular answer was quartz, and that is the correct answer. So the quartz crystal we talked about or touched upon, I think, last class, that the quartz, the angle of the quartz crystal grows at a 52-degree angle, and the pyramids, before they were raided by those of the Islamic tradition, many of the coverings of the pyramid were taken off. So one of the stones that was used was quartz, and as we showed you, its combination, or excuse me, its composition, I should say, is the proper word to use. Its composition is, it uses the 4-in-1 principle, which we explained about that in the quality, and also the configuration needed when you set up of the matrix of the female, but also the configuration that is needed to open up the gateway. Yeah, so 4-in-1 principle, 4-in-1 seasons, for example, after the Great Cataclysm, some 12,000 BCE, and it caused the axis of the planet, I suppose, to shift. So after that, we went from 2 seasons to 4 seasons, and that is a 4-in-1 principle. Yeah, 4-in-1. So 4, but it's also 1. And obviously, the quality is a woman can be a woman, a mother, a grandmother, and a daughter in one being. So again, that 4-in-1 principle. And there are different types. It could be 4-in-1, 3-in-1, 2-in-1, so on and so forth in our symbolism. But 4-in-1 is a very important one, certainly for this day and time that we're living in, and particularly on this planet. Right. Okay. Yeah. So, excuse me. The quartz. Remember, the quartz. The technology of the quartz crystal and how it was used as well. Remember, is very similar to what's being used when you talk about an ultrasound. Yeah. So you think about an ultrasound where they fire sound. Say fire sound, but they use sound waves basically to look at or to get a picture of what a baby looks like internally. Remember that the sound is bouncing off of that crystal. The crystal is storing the vibrations of what that baby looks like, based on the reflection of those sound waves. And then you put electricity through that crystal and it causes it to yield its information. Understood? So in a similar way, we were able to touch crystals or object reading. As you know, psychometry is one of our hidden etheric or spiritual abilities. And so clearly by our touch, we're able to object read certain objects, but in terms of crystals, by touching it, you're able to extract that outformation that that crystal had picked up, and then obviously force it to yield up its particular energy. So the crystal, because of its relationship to the configuration, obviously, of DNA as well, it acted like an interdimensional communication device. So it allowed us to, or enhanced or emphasized, as I say, our ability to communicate with other dimensions. Now, question number 8. What was the evidence in the Tuli Papyrus that indicated an opening of the gateway had successfully occurred? Is that? In fact, back. Okay, sorry. No, question 7. Select the correct genetic composition of individual less the golden child Nago Nadu. So that's negroids. That translates as needed to open up the gateway. Okay, so people are paying attention. So the most popular answer was the second one, XYX, YXY, XYX, YXY. So hermaphrodite, hermaphrodite, that's 2 sets of those needed to open up the gateway there. So well done to everybody with getting that correct. Question number 8. What was the evidence in the Tuli Papyrus that indicated an opening of the gateway successfully occurred? The most popular answer is also the correct answer, that crafts appeared in the skies. Yeah, so as I say, Ma'at Ka'a Ra'ye or Hatat Sha'ep Satak, as a hermaphrodite, had successfully opened up the gateway. Remember, there were many attempts to do such before. Various different factions had foiled this attempt, but the evidence that basically it was successful is that these crafts appeared in the sky, and so therefore Thutmose the third insisted that these records were kept, because also as those crafts appeared in the sky, it caused certain creatures to be raining down from the sky. So that phenomena still occurs today. So interestingly enough, is that evidence that there are UFOs or IFOs when we see this type of phenomena occurring? Because according to ancient records, this is what took place at that particular time. So crafts appearing in the sky is evidence of the successful opening of the gateway with the hermaphrodites and one golden child. Right, bit of a tricky question, this one. Which answers apply? So, what female ruler and pharaoh was a Muhnashtat, a hermaphrodite? And actually, all four answers are correct. Yeah, so if you tick to all four, that was the correct answer. So, Ma'at Ka'arye, Hatat She'ep Satak, Hatat She'ep Tat, and Hatshepsut is popularly as she's known as, but it's not the proper tones, as you can see there. From its equivalent there in full tones there. So yeah, all four were correct. So you ticked all four to get the answer correct there. And then finally, number 10, Pa'Muknashtatu and Pa'Muknashu have the ability to do what? And who do they reach out to? Let's see what the popular answer there. Again, the most popular answer is also the correct one. So vibrate themselves twice and raise their body frequency, and they reach out to Atun Reye. So yes, they can vibe. Their genetic configuration allows them to adjust, and everything's intensive for them. So they're more sensitive in terms of their environment, how they see colors, how they perceive sound, and so they can raise their body frequency twice that of the normal individual. So at the right time in nature, in the right location, at the right point, they can open up that gateway, and they reach out to Atun Reye because that is the highest point of that principle in the sky. So the correct answer is number one. One more information about the Muknashtatu, which is the female hermaphrodites, and then Muknashu, which is the hermaphrodites. Then check out Gateway and the Guardians, part 1 and 2. So certainly following this class or reading those books, Lost Records of Time, more intensively, Birth of Religion helps you to understand Lost Records of Time, and Tatui Papyrus, when you then go back to look at Gateways and the Guardians, part 1 and 2, it hopefully should make a lot more sense to you, what you're picking up there. So you understand that they're created at a very, very specific time. So when a woman is pregnant or with child, it only happens in the 5th week of that pregnancy, and in the midpoint. So if you break down to your week 7 days, so to speak, then split that in half, 3.5 days, and split it again right down to the 60th points of a minute, then split that down again to 60th points within a minute. So the exact middle part of that in that 5th week is going to be when those individuals are created, and not to make things too complicated, but to say check out that class, it will give you the specific details to say of why you get one as opposed to the other. You understand? So people naming themselves, I'm deciding all of a sudden I'm non-binary, or I'm this or that, by ticking some box on a piece of paper is not how nature selects whether a person is or is not that. It's not necessarily just what we describe as a feeling in that regard. It's a very, very specific, as I say, type of configuration that happens in the 5th week of pregnancy. And so a much rarer occurrence than one might actually, as the society believes, you understand, in terms of it creating sort of multiple genders right now. And a lot of that, remember, is designed to confuse the issue. And as we've expressed, I think in part one of this class, going back to that, is that the homophobia created from the monotheistic religions potentially is designed to suppress the gateways, the guardians of the gateway coming through, so to speak, and then that plan, as I say, which allows us to reconnect with our ancestors, who the Egyptians referred to as the Natharu, but we know obviously their proper name is Morzaku, or providers, the Riskians, understood? So it enables us to connect when those gateways get opened up. So their morality of what they teach, or promoted certainly in that regard, can block individuals from coming through, because clearly of the type of thinking that arises from those things. That's got nothing to do with the Illuminati agenda of population control and things of that nature, and it's what you see basically in terms of its prevalence on the television and in the media, so on and so forth. There's two different things going on there. So there's a 9-way and there's a 6 or ghostational way where you see certain things that are happening. Understood? And as I say, they try to eclipse the sun of righteousness. So some things may appear like it's using our stuff, but like an eclipse, it's the same size as the sun. It's not the sun. It's just designed to block out the sun's light. Okay, right. So let's move on to the class. Any questions? For the moment, any questions?
No questions.
Okay, I see something in the chat here. The document is from Egypt, although the name is not. What is the true name of the document? From Sertet Rec. So basically, the name is not given in the book, but it's the records of Tahuti Masas Parthalan. So Thutmose III, it was his record. So basically, he commanded those priests at that time to make a record of this particular event. So it'd be his record. Now, whether it had a specific name, that's not given in the book. So maybe a question to say at a certain point to ask the master. But it's the records of Thutmose III, effectively. Okay, so lost records. Thank you, Toltat, for the question. Now, lost records. So we've touched upon this, and we'll go into it and say in a bit more detail. And we're just showing you because we got a bit forwards, backwards, etc., and be giving you different aspects of the book. We want to focus specifically today on just so you can see how a little bit of the game was played. So that when you go back to it, you sort of know what you're looking for, because we'll be looking at things a certain way, and the symbolism behind it is something different. Yeah. So in verse 10 of Lost Records Time, he says, "Now let me, Parman Zal Nathaam and the Ba'h B'ah Yaanuwn, reveal to you the long lost secret of these time shift." 11. The records that the Hebrews copied from the Babylonians, who got them from us, Egyptians, have been changed in time, and their true meaning is all but almost lost. So one of the things that you kind of have to understand as a Sabian or somebody just interested in this particular doctrine information, you have to understand about anthropomorphic principles, and there's the sort of meaning here from obviously the word anthropomorphous. So here we'll read the definition from Etymology Online, and it says involving the attribution of human qualities to divine beings, from anthropomorphous, originally in reference to regarding God or gods as having human form and human characteristics of animals, plants, nature, etc. So that's the meaning of, or one of the descriptions of the meaning of the word in English, and it's, I suppose, its root almost having human form, anthropoid, so walking on two legs of apes, etc., establishing late anthropomorphous having human form, anthropomorphous of human form, of anthros, human being, anthropomorph form. Yeah, word of uncertain etymology. So they don't even know where it comes from in that regard. But that principle is that when you see an individual, so for example, here we're showing Tahuti, yes, the fact that he's depicted in human form, it means something. Then he's wearing a mask, then he's got obviously here a sun and a crescent underneath it, for example. So the fact that he's shown in human form has meaning. Understood, yes? So, has meaning. You understand? So the fact it's showing human form. So this is what you have to pay attention to analyze. Remember the level of detail that the Kadem Mukhmatu, the ancient Egyptians, had is significant. Yeah, so you have to pay attention to what exactly, even the direction that they're facing, standing, everything has some meaning. This is how detailed or very specific we were. So here's an example, as you can see, yes, of the anthropomorphic representation of the deity Ptah-Warat, where they stole her name for the term Torah, which is the first 5 books of Moses: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Greeks called her Zodiacus, where the word zodiac comes from. You know the word zodiac, it means an animal. Yes, and so you see in the different star signs, isn't it, so-called star signs in their astrological system, yes, they use animal representation, don't they, in certain instances, or symbols, etc. So in this particular instance, she was obviously a female, but they've shown her as an animal here, or a mammal. And as you know, the symbolism behind that is because the hippopotamus, as a mammal, can hold its breath under water the longest of any land-based creature. It's even longer than the blue whale. Understood? So it is a amphibious creature insofar as it's land and water-based. They refer to it as the river horse, and it looks like a pregnant female. And we've explained to you before, the 4 toes, obviously, is that 4-in-1 principle, as you can see there from verse 21 of the quality. That 4-in-1, so what a woman can be in terms of the quality. Now, excuse me. So, and that tower is at the center of the zodiac as a pregnant female. And, the baby does a 360 turn, isn't it, in the womb, allowing its molar chakra to touch base with all of the different celestial houses. So this is anthropomorphic representation of this individual. Understood? So it's that sort of symbolic representation. Now, you got to think, if you wasn't aware of that principle and you took it literally, understood, because today we live in a time of Netflix, Netflix, we live in a time of Amazon Prime, understood. We've had Star Wars, Star Trek, we've had decades, obviously, of movies with different special effects, etc., etc. And so we've seen in movies creatures that don't look human but humanoid, and we've seen all these different type of things. So we've got a very wide kind of range of how we view things. But certainly in ancient times, taking even 500 years ago, when they were looking at this, would they have known or thought, okay, you know what I mean? Is this a hippopotamus that can walk on 2 legs, or would they have recognized the symbolism? Now, depending on who's recording the story, if they're confused and they record it down as confusion, then when you read it, you're going to be confused. Yeah, unless you understand the mindset or mentality of how those people were. So it's not just about translating something into another language. You have to have understanding of the culture, which is why that Amun Ba'h B'ah Yaanuwn is significant, because it's not just a case of translating in this instance, for example, like a Thule papyrus. You have to understand the context of what was taking place, what was going on, etc., etc. Now, obviously, if it was a person 500 years ago, they're not going to be able to describe craft, so we're going to get a different type of description of what is taking place there. Understood? And so, whereas, as is expressed, we touched upon this last week, they were already familiar with crafts in their culture. And so that's why it got recorded in the way in which it did. It didn't get some outlandish descriptions. Remember, those descriptions got copied into the Bible, Ezekiel's wheel, and different things of that nature, with people who didn't know what they were talking about or what they were looking at. You understand? And so you can see little by little, this is the surprise of all of this, isn't it? How much of our stuff has been plagiarized, copied into their other people's writings around the world, which have then been repackaged and represented as something divine. Understood? Simply for them to tie themselves into the vine. And plagiarism is an interesting concept, isn't it? So imagine somebody can go to Africa, and I think we touched upon this a few classes ago, but they take a let's say they take a picture of a statue, or they take a picture of a temple. Understood? Bring it back to the West and they upload it. All of a sudden now they can tell a person, yeah, the image is copyrighted, so you can't use it. Yeah, so if you use that image and it's copyrighted, then they're going to try and sue you for copyright. But what about the people who made the temple? What about the people who made the original statue? How do they get recognition? Yeah, so this is the irony of these types of things, isn't it? The irony of it. Yeah, you say you own it, but you didn't build it. You didn't contribute to the build it. You're not related to the people who built it. But you're the ones making money. So how did the original descendants get their recognition in terms of copyright? Yeah. Oh, I found it. I discovered it. Therefore, I can not only can I use it, but I can take it, remove it from its original origin, and put it in a museum somewhere for everybody to admire. You understand? But then you're telling people thou shalt not steal. There's a little bit of a hypocrisy in there, isn't it? Do one thing, say one thing, and do something completely different, but call it legal. Now, so when you look in the 9 here, interesting chapter, and it says Moesasu, yeah, Wahi, yeah, the ones who are principles only. Just for time, I'll read the English. So it says to all Nawapians or Mospatu, yeah, Sapiens, know this actual fact. We don't adore, nor admire, nor prostrate, nor worship the idols or statues of our ancestors. Their images are only principles. You all must understand that. Yeah, must. Yeah, amkum lazem, fahum pafef. Yeah, must. Yeah, lazem, must understand that. Yeah, shabeh nushuma, their likeness. Ranat Huma, their names, Amkum Adir Yasasat, Lahe Amkum Lakay Fahum Nafashkum. They are principles for you all to understand yourselves. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, so if you're not reading, we might miss this, isn't it? You're bowing down to statues and different things. In fact, Master did say that we shouldn't even be bowing down with deities. So even in the prayer system, where we were bowing, that was a degree for a certain type of growth, you understand, at that particular time. Understood? So here you see it's saying that it's principles. So a message is being conveyed, which is one of the reasons, I think we touched upon this in the last class, that, when you look at the Patarak, sacred masculine or Nawapian man or Mospatu man, and sacred feminine, those Patarak, remember, they tell you to join the those orders, the White House for the females, or the Order of the Eastern Stars, and the Blue House, Sabian Grand Lodge, for the males, because the language of Freemasonry for us, we can put all this Illuminati nonsense to the side. We explained that. That's their stuff, you understand? Euro Freemasonry is not the true orders and brotherhoods and sisterhoods as it pertains to ancient Egypt. Ours is our understanding of nature. But it teaches you the language of symbolism. Understood? So as we're walking back in these various different degrees, we started off from 1, walking back to 9, you understand? The true sort of ancient Egyptian order. Yes, then clearly we have to understand how symbolism was used or how symbols are used. Yeah, for us, obviously, it's this bridge between what you can see and what you can't see. Yeah, so the world of matter versus energy, or something versus nothingness. You understand? It's helping us to understand that hidden world in that regard. So anthropomorphism is a principle that needs to be understood. Any questions?
Yes, there are some questions, and the first question relates to an answer you gave about the document, and the question was it written on stone or on paper?
Well, according to the person who discovered it, it was on papyrus or paper, yeah, not stone.
And there's another question. What scroll is this? I think they're referring to the scroll that you're reading from at the moment.
The nine. That the previous chapter, is that the question? This one?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what's being referred to.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, the nine. Excuse me. I usually put the reference up there. So the nine.
Okay, and we have another question from Corinne. Does this mean when we need guidance, we must not call upon our ancestors' name or have a picture of them and worship or pay homage to them?
No, it obviously very specifically there says statues and idols. So remember, when you're using or you're connecting with them, that's really to draw out, well, there's two things actually going on, but it's to draw that out of you because they're in your bloodstream as part of your DNA and RNA. And obviously you're using those assets in your 4 generations to make the connection to anybody who's further back. Understood. So the using of a photo or a statue of the individual person is not to worship that individual, but it's a reminder for you, or it's to help you to connect with them. And obviously, of course, we pay respect and in that regard, and as a ritual that enables us to do that. Understood. But it's not to worship the individual, like I suppose, in the sense of the object itself. Do you understand? It wasn't created for that reason. Understood? It's created to remind. Yeah, and that's why they built them in these various different forms so they would last the test of time. So when you're looking at it, there's a certain message that's being conveyed for those who know to pick up. And clearly we don't know, so that's why they send somebody etherically in the form, as an etheric connection, in the form of a physical body to teach you what these things mean, so that when you know them, you would respect it and also keep the secret sacred. You understand? Because somebody who truly knows, they're guarded. They're not really going to say anything, because if the information falls into the wrong hands, it gets misused. Do you understand? So that discipline almost, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because we've got to be taught, but at the same time, when the master's teaching us, teaching everybody else. You understand? So those statues are not there for that reason. There's a message in there that needs to be understood and conveyed. And that's why over time, you kind of understand the damage that monotheistic religion has caused because of the way it's warped people's minds, as I say, into kind of worshipping nothingness. You understand? Where we deal with what is tangible, what is real, even if it's something that we can't see with our physical eyes. So no, you keep connecting with your ancestors, but you don't worship the actual symbols. Do you understand? Or the actual statues themselves. They're there to cause you to look inwardly. Any other questions?
Yes, we have another question from Corinne, and she asks, what rituals should we carry out?
We have a daily ritual 9, 3, and 9. I'm not sure how I would get that to you, but I think you can maybe put your email address, message, Harati and Mabab, and we can send you that, or anybody else who's interested in that. So chants 9, 3, and 9. So that helps one to align their Now there's an updated word for it, which I can't remember in Sabat. Maybe somebody in the chat can think. But Arushat, or what they call chakras, Arushat there's another word for your endocrinal glandular system. So the glands themselves, through chanting or the right type of chant in the Sabat language, it helps them to align with each other in a proper line, not to freak you out, but it can open up portals to other dimensions. You can allow you to speak to your ancestors who have passed directly, in the same, because we're both spiritual, etheric, and physical beings. So that's one way to keep in alignment. And so the language keeps changing, evolving, because you get white noise as we're seeking to connect with higher states of vibration. So the master's there to tweak things to eliminate white noise, or the ability, as I say, for others to interfere with that connection. Understood? Because anything at 7, 8, and 9 ether levels of vibration are always of our own ancestry. And so once you get to 6 and below that, then it can be of foreign ancestry. So that's one ritual. So chanting at 9, 3, and 9, and memorizing the 99 names or elements that we have as well as part of that process. And you have direct sort of rituals that allow you to connect with your Salafu ancestors. So that's your physical ancestry, one of your 4 generations. And that's who you put your sort of personal requests in. Your higher ancestors is a Parnathara who we perceived as sons or our sons. When you're putting requests into them, it's for the sort of greater good, you understand, other than for self and kind, something that you're not directly benefiting from, you understand. It's for the wider race, could be the wider community, etc. And that's why, as I say, you call upon them or seek their help in that regard. They're not interested if you're struggling to pay your telephone bill, but your great grandmother who passed is more likely to be, because they were physical, they understand that, and so they know how to assist you in navigating the challenges of this physical world in preparation, as I say, for the real living, real existence when you transition from this life. So again, I think we've shared that stuff before, but if you're interested, put your email address or send a personal message into the facilitator Harahim about there, and we can send that information out to you to practice. And so it's a proper way to set your altar up and then to greet your ancestors, etc., and some rules around that which you also need to adhere to and practice it and see if it works. You know, don't have to cut a chicken, don't have to do none of that stuff. Yeah, so it's sure right. That's where the word genie really comes from. Is it genes? See the word genes in there? Yeah, genie. Yeah, so they've got a myth where you rub a lamp, you understand, make the genie, and you ask them for 3 wishes. But it's really us talking about our genes, so our genes, and calling upon, let's say, our ancestors who are in our bloodstream for help. You don't need to sacrifice. It's inbuilt mechanics that allow you to do that. Any questions?
Yeah, we have another question from Robert. Do the signs of the zodiac have 12 signs or 24 signs? If 24, how does one identify them?
So a very good question. Very good question, Robert. So basically, the answer to that is in a class called Gateway and the Guardians. And so basically, when you look at the list here, can you see? So you've got the 4, which we'll probably touch upon a little bit later in this class if you get time. But see the 4 women standing up. Yes, but they also are wearing the headdress of the namaz or the male. Yep. So, but they're standing up 4, and then you see 2, 4, 6, 8. Yes. So the 8 Ogdoads we're seeing here. Yes, in terms of that side. So they make up 12. So when you talk about 24, you see that what 2 star constellations are connected or primarily are aligned with our existence. Yeah, we see Orion, 12, and we see Cyrus or Sirius. Yes, so 2 female, obviously energy from Cyrus, and then female energy from masculine energy, from Orion, in the sense that that's where we're getting that 24. So each of the constellations themselves, remember, has a positive or a negative aspect to them. Do you understand? So that's where we're getting our 24. The two energies spliced really in this way from Orion and Sirius. You understand? So that's where you're getting the 24 constellations. When you talk about constellation, really we are looking at a certain configuration of stars, but it's describing a type of energy, isn't it, at that point that's being received in a dominant way on the planet Earth, which causes, as we know, changes or affects the planetary-based creatures as a result of that. So that's what you're tracking there. You understand? So it's still 12, but it's that 2 times because of different types of energy, let's say, as it's spliced from those 2 different constellations. So male and female, understood? 12 plus 12 gives you the 24. Any other questions?
No other questions.
Okay, and I think we showed you before here as well. When you count the hands, you see, count the hands of all these different individuals. Yeah, sorry, the Horus is crouching down, which could be because they're male, but females wear that headdress as well. And then, as I say, you've got the 4 women there holding up the Dendora, or Forsaken Feminine. They're holding up the Dendora, who have breasts, but they're also, as I say, wearing this Namuz, which ties into the lion as well. In certain Namuz, you see the pharaohs wearing there, or certainly male pharaohs. You saw them wearing that again, showing this kind of male and female combination, hermaphrodite or hermaphrodite combination, or hermaphrodite, I should say, combination there in the depiction. Understood? The Gateways and the Guardians, very good class, part 1 and 2. Go into a lot of detail, as I say, but we'll cover a little bit of that as well as we're looking at here. So the 12 tribes of Israel, as you can see on the screen, where that confusion came in, and we explained that in part 1. Just going back over it in a bit more detail now. So, as I say, they got confused, isn't it? So they took our stuff. Yeah, it's got interpreted in Sumer by Sumerians and the Babylonians. Obviously, the Hebrews have picked it up, then the Greeks, and so on and so forth. So each time these different cultures, instead of giving credit to the source from where it came, they want to try and make like they understand it and then rewrite it in their own way. And so this is where the confusion comes in, because it depends on where you're picking it up. As ontologists, we're interested in the original or the source of where this information comes from. We're not interested in how it got changed down the line so much. We need to go to the source. Yeah. And so what we understand is that those 12 tribes of Israel are simply talking about the zodiac. So there's a lot of people here, running around dressing like Israelites, dressing like Arabs who lived, however many years ago, 1400 years ago, etc. And whole cultures have been birthed out of this storytelling and symbolism, and it's all, let me try and find the word which is palatable, but it's all bullcrap. You understand? Because the real meaning sitting behind it is not understood. Yeah, and so people who lived many, as I say, centuries before us, who didn't have overstanding, they didn't even have an understanding. They were looking at things that they didn't interpret, but they obviously know it's connected to, what they're calling God or these higher powers, so on and so forth, and want to be connected to it. So they've taken things from our culture and, as I say, made their own stories. So there's no 12 tribes of Israel ever existed. You understand? And even the word you see there, which the Freemasons put together in that composite of Isis, Ra, and El, yes, even that you see there has alludes to an ascension journey that connects the earth with the stars. Understood? Because Jacob's name got changed, remember, to Isis, Ra'el, or Israel, in a dream where he climbed Jacob's ladder. So all of that is, as I say, symbolism within the stories, and it is simply, but whether people will understand it and accept that literally, when we're reading these stories, you are simply discussing the birth and death of solar systems, birth and death of galaxies, movement of stars or planets, etc., but being described oftentimes because anthropomorphically someone has changed what it was for it to be shown oftentimes in human form. As we've said many times in this class, I feel like I'm repeating myself. Yeah, if you think about Venus, yes, Venus is a planet, but also in the back of your mind somewhere, oh, that's the god of love. Yeah, and the Romans depicted her as a woman. Yeah, and then there's even been movies where, the goddess Venus has appeared and all this kind of stuff. Understood? So the whole kind of mythology against it, yeah, understood. And then you get movies that emphasize that once again. People forgetting, they were talking about the planet. Simply, when you understand it, simple facts can clear this up when you know. Now in Quran, Surah 85, verses 1 to 3, it reads, so Al-Buruj, understood, yeah, is actually the zodiac. Yes, it says, and the sky, source of the constellation. Sorry, let me read the translation. And by the skies, the source of the Dendora, and the day it's promised, counted, and the watchers being watched. So we have a number of things like 12 Tribes of Israel, and in this instance, you see it in Surah 85, originally 22. And again, it's talking about the zodiac, about the stars and our relationship, the solar biological relationship and the lunar biological relationship that we have. Not astrology so much, but astronomy, in the sense of interesting. Well, astronomy is really the laws, talking about the laws that govern the stars and various different cosmological bodies, not necessarily the idea that, as I say, you're born at a certain time and then this sets your personality for life. We went through that in some detail to find out, why that's problematic, and to say that it does have some impact, but you're constantly changing. And even then, as I say, you have to think about expression of 3 star signs in any regard. Yeah, when was your mother born? When was your father born? And then when you were born, because you're going to express those natures equally. Then obviously we're taking into account the 30 different personalities. So there's a lot of things going on there, why it's not necessarily a reliable science to hold for it to be factual, as well as the fact that it changes every year because of precession change. So Dendora is the sky maps and the Temple of Hathor. It's not just in the Temple of Hathor, it's in many temples, but that just happens to be one of the most famous ones. So, as I say, 12 tribes of Israel, that's what it's really talking about. 12 tribes of Ishmael, that's what it's talking about. We start to get into the Jesus story. We see, this is what it's talking about. It's cosmology that you're dealing with here, not real people walking about, living lives of these stories of people that they haven't found their bodies, they haven't found any of the monuments these people have built, all famous stories, and they're never going to find them because they never existed. And so this is the cold reality of what many of us invested our emotional energy into for many years. So let's look at the symbolism. So it really starts with Judah and Genesis 14. And Judah, obviously, we think about the Lion of Judah. And right then we think, okay, well, where did this lion or relationship with the lion come from? So Genesis 49:9 is the key also to understanding a certain time or calendar, I should say, that's used and ties into not only where this confusion has comes in, but what it's really talking about as well. And so if you really understand what you're reading when you're looking at these particular verses. So Genesis 49 says Judah is a lion. So it tells you straight off the bat, what it is. So Judas is a lion's whelp from the prey that my son, thou art gone up. He stooped down. He couched as a lion, and as an old lion, who shall rouse him up? Okay, so you're looking at that as a lion. Let's go to Hosea 5:14. So, for I will be unto Ephraim as a lion, and as a young lion to the house of Judah. Even I, will tear and go away. I will take away. None shall rescue him. And then we see in Revelation 5:7, says, of the tribe of Judah were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Reuben was sealed 12,000. And of the tribe of Gad, 12,000. Do you understand? It continues. So Judah is associated with the lion and lion of Judah here. And we see the name there means to be praised. So in that, or Yehuda, to be praised, and the son of Jacob and Leah. So here, interesting enough, if you start to look at this in a bit more detail, let's say, for example, you replaced that my son with the S-U-N son, understood, it's going to read a bit differently, isn't it? You understand? So to actually understand what it is that I'm reading, what it is that I'm looking at, and what the symbolism that's sitting behind or what's being described there, because first of all, someone should be saying, well, what does this mean? Judah is a lion's whelp from the prey, my son, thou art gone up. He stooped down, he couched as a lion, as an old lion, who shall rise up. Is he talking about the nature of the people? Is he talking about Judah, the individual? Now, if we're specific detail, God is not doing a particularly great job in making it clear what needs to be explained. Clear. So we don't get confused, because confusion leads to arguments, leads to disagreements, leads to wars, which we've seen with our religions today. So what's he talking about here? So what we see is the lion leonine or sort of iconography in, we see it all over the religion, in the sand. And we see it here on a wedding cup here, or goblet, excuse me. And again, see the lion there again. We see it here on a headstone in a grave, a Jewish grave. See it on here on the menorah. We see lions there. And we know that lion is talking about the Leo star constellation, understood, which we see, as I say, depicted as a lion. And if you think about it, in a lot of European buildings as well, what do you see outside some of these ancient buildings? You see lions sitting there as a form of protection, you understand? So they're not Jewish buildings, and nothing to do with the Jewish culture, so to speak, but they've got lions sitting in front of the buildings acting as a form of protection. And so that ties back, as we clearly know, to ancient Egypt, or Kadem Muhammad. Now, so that is known as Paruti in sort of the older Sabaic, but Parawat. And Parawat, or one of the depictions of the lion, it is one of the anthropomorphic representations of Atum in the sand. And we see here the temple of Hathor there, and we'll touch upon this a bit later, but you can see in front in these pillars is the face of the female, which they've decided conveniently to rub out, to wipe out these individual faces of these females there on those pillars. Understood? 6 of them. Yeah. So again, those numbers are important. 6, tying into carbon, the basis of, say, all human life, certainly here on the planet Earth. Yeah, we are carbon-based life forms. Now, when we look at this throughout this dictionary, we can see a number of creatures were sacred to Atum, including the lion, bull, Ichinumon, and the lizard. Yeah, so the lion is associated, not exclusively, but associated with Atum, understood, which we understand to be the sun, as it, opposed to what's being said there, but the sun as it appears to rise, yes, in the sky. Yeah, sun as it appears to rise. Yeah, the first point, Atum to atoms to atoms. Understood? So the first point, as we know, is that Atum point. And we see there it's associated with the lion and the Leo star constellation. Yes? So, in fact, we'll come on to that a bit later. Now, what we see here with Judah, that Judah is the fourth son of Jacob and Leah. And so in analysing Jacob's wives who gave birth to these 12 tribes, he had 2 what would be described as full or real wives, and then he had 2 concubines who were the maids of his wives, who they then gave to him to have sex with, as in usual biblical style. The main wife had difficulty conceiving, so they would give their husbands, these other women, to then mate with, and then basically they would mate with these women, get jealous, and then they'd have the child of their own in certain instances. So one of the questions that you might sit back and think, so, okay, well, these people apparently descended from Noah, perfect in their generations, but there always seems to be this problem of conceiving. Yeah, they have a problem with conceiving. But this is God's people. I'll let that one sit with you for a minute. Now, so we see Leah gave birth to Reuben, Simeon, Levi, 4, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Dinah. Yes? So basically, if you count, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, you see that it's not 12, it's 13, because she had Dinah. So they obviously miss out the female. I remember in part 1 that we told you, when you look at their symbol of the zodiac, see in the Dendora, there's the female in the center, isn't it, by way of Patawaret, the symbol of the hippopotamus, yeah, mammals who are also reptilians. Understood? Because the word mammal, if you look it up from the word mammalis, it means to breastfeed, correct? Men don't breastfeed, so what are they? Yeah? Question. Yeah. So what are they? So they don't breastfeed. So how can they be defined as mammals? Mammals breastfeed. A question. But we see mammals who are also reptilians. Understood? So, but here you see 13. Yeah. Again, counting who was in the center. And the female center, which obviously these patriarchal systems and religions removed the woman's role from the centre, isn't it? Same way like they removed their names, etc., from a lot of their biblical text. Yeah, Noah begat. Noah, who did Noah begat? He couldn't have begat without his wife. His wife's name's not in there. You understand? So if you're dealing with actual facts, then that's one thing. If you're dealing with hate for women, then that's something else. Understood? So here, the 2 wives, we see 4 wives, Leah and Rachel, and then these second wives or concubines or half wives we see there. So let's jump to the actual verses. Yeah. So Genesis 30, 1 to 24. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but we're going to see here. And Rachel, 1, when Rachel saw that she bare Jacob no children, Rachel envied her sister and said to Jacob, "Give me children or else I die." So she's going to kill herself. 2, and Jacob's anger was kindled against Rachel, and he said, am I in God's stead? Who hath withheld thee from the fruit of thy womb? So he's saying it's not my fault. You understand? I'm not God, so I'm not the one causing you not to be pregnant. Maybe not true, Jacob. Maybe not quite true. But 3, and he said, behold, my maid Bilhah, go in unto her, and she shall bear upon my knees, that I may also have children by her. So Rachel gave Jacob Bilhah. Yeah, and you see here, my maid. She wasn't on the same level, seemingly, as Rachel. And then she said she gave Bilhah her maiden to wife. Yeah, so he created a half wife, understood, as opposed to her who was a full wife in that regard. The same thing happens then here when we look at Leah. I'll go down to verse 9. And Leah saw that she was left bearing. She took Zilpah, her maid, and gave Jacob to wife. Yeah, so in this instance, and I suppose in most instances, the man's not choosing, the women are choosing who to marry. So both Bilhah and Zilpah don't have the same status as Rachel and Leah, who are considered to be full wives. So when we look at the symbolism behind that, as you can see here, yeah, it ties into the 4 phases of the moon. So Leah, obviously, who was a full wife, and Rachel, understood, who was considered to be a full wife, and then we have Bilhah and Zilpah, who were considered to be half wives. And so we look at the phases of the moon here. We've got obviously new moon here, full moon, and then we've got, you understand, halves here in terms of these kind of quarters or partials could be described as. You understand? And so again, similar here. So it's full position and then partial positions here. So this is what we're looking at when we're reading about this symbolism and how it's relating to, let's say, movements of certain planetary bodies. Now, what it does from 49.9, it introduces a calendar which sets this 2,000-year process in place. So we go from Jacob, yes, and the formulation of these 12 children or 12 tribes, you understand, or zodiac. And then basically we go from 2000 down to 1 AD, you understand, as the seemingly end of BC, before Christ. You know, we don't have a 0, so there's some confusion there, isn't there? So when was this individual born? Because we get 1 AD, you understand, which is supposed to be Anno Domini after his death. And some describe that as meaning. But when's his birth date? Yeah, because when you look at the calendar, there's an issue because he obviously had to be born between those 2 time periods, and he wasn't. You understand? He was born slightly after that, according to their story. Yeah, but it starts a 2,000-year calendar. So we start down to 2,000, and then, yeah, which is to start with the 12 tribes of Jacob, understood, with the 4 wives there, and sent to produce the 13 children, in fact, but 12 males and 1 female. And then we go down to 2000, and then we go up again to in the AD configuration, which would bring up, obviously, us up to today's times. Understood? Yes? So let's look through here. So when we look at 49.9, it talks about a crouching lion. You understand? Crouching lion, or crouch as a lion. And it talks about a cast lion, an old lion, we shall rise him up. So a lion at a certain point crouching, and then another time the lion is upright or moved to a more upright position. Now, when we look in ancient Tamaray, we see the depiction of 2 lions, yeah, the Achetwi lions, yeah, which we know that this Twi part there at the end of the word, so Achet, lion, but the Twi at the end, it means jewel. Understood? Yeah, so two or double. And so we can see that here in the form of representing what? Yeah, they represent Atum or Atum Reye and Amun Reye. So out of the east, understood, onto the west. Yeah, so representing these two positions there, which also ties into the solstices. Yeah, so here when we look at the sort of image of the solstice, yeah, it represents, I suppose, 2 points here, and just in this year, it happened to be in those dates, understood. Yeah, but it's one of the equidistant points in the the day, which is a year. So in the full 1 year, understood, which is the revolution of the planet around the sun, yeah, these are these sort of equidistant or equal points within that rotational orbit, see, at that time. So the two lions can represent the solstices, but so represent Atum and Amun, understood, known as Reye Hara Achetwi, very important principle, certainly for us to understand in this day and time. Any questions? Any questions?
No questions.
Okay, right. So we see a crouched lion, interesting enough, in a depiction of these various different depictions of Hatshepsut Satah, or Hatshepsut, as they more popularly she's known as, understood? And so remember, the original face on the Sphinx or Ararat was female. Yeah, before in the time of Khufu's time, yeah, they changed it to Khufu's face, Pharaoh Khufu's face, but it was originally female, yeah, leonine, yeah, and it represented obviously Tefafnatat or Tefnut as moisture. You can see there the Safaf, that should be the update word, Safaf, for her, which is the hieroglyph for her name, yeah, meaning moisture in that regard. And so the spitting forth, obviously, of that moisture represents mitochondrial DNA. And these sort of half-baked loaves here, as you can see them, represent, when you see that, you see it denotes female because it's the tat. The name of the tat symbol there, understood? So moisture, very important. You see the spitting forth because it's carrying that mitochondrial lineage, you understand? Obviously by way of water. So where there's water, there is life, you understand? So again, 49.9 talks about a lion crouching. And this again, you're not seeing that potentially seeing that in cultures older than when this book was written. So you can see where they got these ideas and these concepts from. Yes? Yeah. Yeah, so the closely the crouching a lion there with obviously level of detail, symbols, etc. And I say this is where they get with the female lion, as you know, is the protector of the pride. Yeah, it's a protector of the pride. And so, yeah, this concept again is why they put lions outside of many of their buildings, or certainly many of these older buildings that you see in London, various cities around the UK and around Europe. And so taking that concept and again placing it, their own iconography in front of these buildings, but not giving the credit to where the idea came from. So again, you see Paruti here, the side profile of Pararat, and this is a female, originally it's a female face that was upon it until it was changed. So 4910 now. Some of you certainly who is in the Islamic degree would know this particular verse very well, because it was used certainly in the prophecy of Muhammad coming. And it tells you, 49:10, the scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet until Shiloh come, and unto him shall the gathering of the people be. So in there, they don't understand it. In fact, in 2 Kings, I think in the 17th chapter, remember the tribe of Israel was destroyed. I think only the tribes of Judah and Dan and some remnants of Benjamin were left. So the scepter was passed from Israel to Ishmael. It's an all nice as part of the stories there, but it has a meaning, a hidden meaning to that, understood? And here we see depart from Judah. So we know Judah is a what? Judah is associated with a lion. Understand? It says the lawgiver shall not a lawgiver from between his feet until Shiloh come. So when we look here, talk about between his feet, it's talking about here the representation of the lion and between the lion's paws. We touched upon this last class, remember, when we were looking at the Thule Papyrus and Alberto Thule, that the Catholic Church, it has a certain origin, look, as I say, associated with the words, etc., but no one knows, obviously, its real origins. So they don't connect the fact that its real origins is the religion of Mark Antony and Cleopatra VII. Yeah, they worship the holy cat, and so which is Padarat, the Sphinx. And so you reverse those words or you read them in dyslexia. Yeah, holy cat becomes Catholic. Understood? Yeah, so Catholicistic sciences here. So that's who they worshipped in that regard. Understood? So that scepter is really talking about here and between the paws of the Sphinx or the lion there. Which these elements are talking about. So it's all symbolism, all ancient Egyptian symbolism, copied, grafted, stolen, etc., etc. You understand? So this is how the game gets played. So the four women stand in the corner. So when you look about the zodiac or how they describe the zodiac, they talk about the four sort of major constellations. You can see there Taurus. Yes, it's associated with the bull, Leo, the lion, Scorpio, fowl, and Aquarius, the water bearer, or a man standing with these pails of water and pouring them out. And we touched upon this last week. When we look at these four anthropomorphic sort of symbols, we see what? The lion there as Sekhmet, Apis the bull. We see the man as Osiris. We see the fowl there, or the falcon, as Horus. And the Sumerians have a version of Padarat called Enkidu the bullman. Look how he's depicted. You understand? A composite creature with wings of all what we were just saying. Part man, part fowl, part bull. Yes. Excuse me. And part falcon. What do we see on the original Sphinx? We see that the Sphinx had those same characteristics, isn't it? Man, bird. We'll see the bull, understood, and in that regard. So they were talking about the Padarat or the Sphinx when they were making these descriptions in that regard. Let me show here the biblical quotes of where you see that copied from and how it ties into Jesus, or the depiction of Jesus as a Sphinx. Now, remember, what is a Sphinx? What does it relate to? Well, it relates to, isn't it, that the geodesic marker that you see here is that the Sphinx at a certain point over 10,500 years ago was when that the Leo star constellation appeared in the east. So the Sphinx would have been looking up seemingly at this particular constellation over 10,500 years ago. You understand? So obviously it's a marker in time, because all of this system is, remember, from a person who's standing on the earth looking upwards in the skies. Yeah, so that's the additional allusion to it, isn't it? Because when we step outside the planet, etc., the constellations don't look like how they look, so on and so forth. Yeah, and we talked about this a little bit when we're dealing with conjunctions. But that is showing a particular perspective that obviously will be in the sky at that time, and so clearly it becomes a certain type of event which you can now measure within time. Yeah, of certain things that are due to take place there. So when we look, so the Sphinx, as I said, originally had wings. So when you look at the four constellations and what they represent, yes, it is talking about here, obviously taking it back to your Dendora star map, but it's talking to them, or the way they've used that symbolism, is talking about the Sphinx. It's talking about the Sphinx as that marker, as a point to how to record time, understood, in their zodiac, which ties into, as I say, their Judah. Now, Judah happened to be the fourth son, isn't it? Yes? As we saw there, of Rachel and Jacob. And that happens to tie into Senan Nefer Reye, or Sen Nefer Reye, or Senefru, yeah, of the fourth dynasty. He is the or attributed, or where they got the story of Noah from. Understood? But as the fourth son, yeah, in the list, the fourth son, representing also the Leo star constellation, it ties it into the fourth dynasty. You understand? So this is where they start to copy. This gets very, very tricky. Yeah, the way in which they've mixed places, names, dates, times, so on and so forth, and cause confusion. The word Babel and the word Bible are the same word phonetically. Yeah. So when we look at the story of Sen Nefer Reye, or Senefru, some say, or Senan Nefar Reye, yep, we're updating it in tones. We can see that, yes, he had three sons, four sons in that regard. And we can see the connection there to the various different biblical characters. Yeah, and if you think, well, okay, well, how does he tie into Noah? Well, in 1955, they found two large, or the spacing, I should say, for two large boats. Right under the pyramid there. You can look it up in your own time. But they found this particular boat, and they now built a special enclosure for it outside of the Giza pyramid, and they sort of reconstructed it. But there was two spaces, yeah, or two boat pits for these boats. Now, we understand that we used to travel. We used to fly, walk at one time, sail, across the waters using the southern tides, and go to the Americas on vacation. Do you understand? So us having boats and different things of that nature is not unusual. So yes, there is some symbolism in there about the bark, you understand, the solar bark, and it's tie-in even to the constellations, you understand, the journey that we take when we expire on the physical life. But you know that we physically use boats as well to move around, even, let's say, to different continents. So we can see, as I say, how, when we're looking at these things, where they've copied certain things from. But the Sphinx, obviously, just like to them, Judah is a central point in their religious story. You can see it's because the source of Judah is the Padarat, or the Sphinx, and the role it plays insofar as it represents man. Hence, the riddle of the Sphinx is associated with the journey of man. Yeah, and how that ties back in, even with these various different creatures there. Remember, these were the sons, sons of Enki and Sachmet or Sachamwat. You understand? As the four sons, the sons that they had. I remember each one of them representing a different set of species on the planet Earth. So all of this has symbolism to it, and obviously you know that the Sphinx or why it has wings because it represents, again, certain crafts. So they're able to ascend outside of the Earth's atmosphere and travel, obviously, for interstellar travel, obviously, in that regard. So we were well familiar with crafts or ships in that regard in our culture. Now, so again, their depiction of the four major constellations, but that's not how we obviously record it. You see there, you see four females, which again ties into the configuration needed to open up the gateway, isn't it? You understand? Because as I say, you've got this female coming to be male configuration, not to genitalia, but to the energy of two genders inside of these unique but very special individuals. Any questions?
No questions currently.
Okay, so again, you see that the Temple of Hathor and 55 talks about these secrets. There's the sacred temple with the Sisters of Hathor with many rituals, which we discussed. Cleopatra the Seven being certainly skilled in many arts in that regard. So these temples, part of their usage was to enable us as a people to go to, knowledgeable priests, so to speak, and seek information about whether we and the partner who we were seeking to marry, if you're using that particular term, were compatible, understood, and the right type of compatibility to optimize how we were to produce children. Remember, two people coming together who are soulmates, who are truly soulmates, they're going to produce star children. Yes, an optimum birthing process is going to produce star children. Do you understand? And so we had temples and rituals that helped individuals to be well versed, in various different arts. Because as we know, the sexual powers, obviously the misuse of the sexual powers, or an overabundance of serotonin turns love into lust. Yeah, and so what's happened, obviously, with the Mukasu and obviously many of the things that they've introduced in their society because of their defects, which have become normalized in society almost as a form of Western culture, and then find themselves moving to extreme positions where we're indulging in unnatural behaviors as a result. But its root is to use that sexual power. Remember, sex is the number 6, and sand ties into 6 carbon. Obviously, think about the weight of the planet, 6 sextillion tons, which is 6 and 21 zeros. After it, the sex, or 6, is also there. So it's a very important aspect of our culture. And the fact that when you read Gospel of Yaanuwn, to the Sacred Feminine, and how the importance of women having orgasms, I think we touched upon this in a previous session, and the fact that many women have not experienced orgasms because, again, the patriarchal way in which those monotheistic religions were written was to remove, they did not want the women to experience pleasure, understood, which subjugates or keeps down her own spiritual powers, understand? Because when a person's experiencing an orgasm, that is where a person is connecting with the heavens, understood, with that Dendora energy, yes, and receiving great insight if they're paying attention to what's going on instead of falling asleep, as the kind of stereotype is for the male. And so both male, sacred masculine, and sacred feminine are supposed to stay awake in that regard. Now, there's a lot of properties to the science of sex, which, again, in a modern society, that whole science of the secrets of these rituals, you can understand, would be very difficult to teach because of how it would be interpreted. Yeah, so even somebody coming along to try and express and teach these secrets, which are contained, unlocking the powers within the human body, it could be misinterpreted. Yeah, in this day and time. So you think about the type of culture that gets created around the sex force, it would, as I say, mean that it would be very difficult to even teach these kind of, even having the discussion, it goes against, seemingly going against the kind of repressed kind of sexual activity that the kind of the religions teach, isn't it? Yeah, if you're not doing anything other than missionary position, you're the devil. Let's be clear. You understand? So, and so this is where certain things like that come from, and this is why, as I say, Lotus Alive seeks to obviously introduce and change or teach women that, hey, you should expect. And you need to have orgasms in order to raise your spiritual powers. And it's obviously teaching men how to understand the human body enough that they should know what they're doing. And the interesting thing around that is it says that penetration is pain, not pleasure. Now, it's an interesting statement, isn't it? Yeah, because as we've said before, the kind of harder, the more violent the person is, etc. If you bruck up the woman and she can't walk the next day or whatever, that's supposed to be a good session. Do you understand? But I suppose if we peel back logically, then so you've had such a session where the person's injured. Is that really love? Or that's what we've been drilled into us of, how, because that's what's been presented on the television and in different things or whatever, that people have seen, and therefore they've copied it. You understand? So these temples or these women were practiced in certain arts, and men needed to be coming to certain arts. Remember, as a man, this is the kind of paradox as well, because as a man, it's not good to go into in certain situations with no knowledge. Yeah, and then be leaving, sacred feminine dissatisfied. So both need to understand what they need to do, I suppose, to get the maximum out of it, but then not use it, not overdo it. You understand? Because oversexed is a problem, as well as undersexed being a problem. You need balance. Understood? So these temples had, birthing rooms and different things of that nature to optimize the birthing process. You understand? And obviously the pleasure principle was placed in the sexual act to keep people, say, wanting to come back again to procreate. And that's very different to the biblical extraterrestrials who, as I say, we touched upon this last week, who are interested in seeing human beings, or certainly the Makasu, as food. So they just wanted to procreate as much as possible, so on and so forth, because, hey, you're part of the production line here. Yes? But as you're talking about us producing star children, it's an optimum, as I say, beings to be balanced, to be able to connect with the heavens, overstood, and activate, become 360 beings. This is what we're seeking to do, isn't it? Holistic, 180 degree, agreeable, 180 disagreeable, but eventually to become 720, 360 mastery of the physical and 360 mastery of the spiritual, or the esoteric, so to speak. So to become complete again. So those faculties which we've been blessed with or born with, obviously are there to be used. So the mysteries sitting behind the the Dendora, and as you see, yeah, how many faces of women on the front? Yeah, how many? 6. You understand? Sex, carbon. You understand? Yeah, the root. You understand what happens at 6 months? You understand? So these are all things tying into, why, as I say, their version of what they've taught us about sex. So it's almost repressed in monotheism, but then behind closed doors, they're doing all kind of madness. Yeah, freaky, stuff behind, and when they get caught, then all of a sudden it's a problem. So there's a level of balancement that needs to be achieved, and certainly when you're a people on the come up, one of the reasons why we reduce sex is because obviously for as much pleasure there's an equal amount of pain that needs to be spent, so to speak, according to those rules of nature. 1 second. Okay, let's get back to where we were. Sorry about this. Invert your eyes. It's in a certain place. I can't jump through. Okay, cool. Right. Okay. So, as I say, so you saw on that symbol it denotes the members of the orders of Hathor, and I think this is a picture of Cleopatra the Seventh as well, a depiction of Cleopatra the Seventh there as well. And so these sisters' sacred rituals designed to say as a location to optimize that birthing process. Understood? So not jumping into a hospital necessarily, but a place, as I say, which is going to find the right partner, have optimum birth, so on and so forth. Yeah, so we have many temples of this regard. The Dendora star map is associated with this temple, but it's not the only place. So that Dendora star map would appear on many temples, on the scene of many temples, not just the Dendora. That's just the one it's been associated with because that's one of the most prominent ones that's known. So that shows you, again, we have many of these types of places around within our society today. Like you have a hospital, and I suppose within the hospital there's a maternity ward, and today now it's even more advanced, birthing pools and different things of that nature. Well, understand what you're looking at here is even a more advanced version of that, because back in the day they wasn't concerned about the woman's well-being and the need to keep her a certain way relaxed and all this type of thing. Now they're understanding that it's from day one. As soon as you're aware, we need to start taking care of what's happening. But obviously now we understand even before that, you need to be if you want to birth the optimum children, then you need to be factoring in inception, and before that, you understand, before not just dealing with, well, I'll do the right thing from conception. No, both male and female have to look at what they want to produce and then work for that accordingly, as opposed to babies being born more so out of lust. Now, so when we look at the story of Jesus 2,000 years ago, and one of the reasons why we've been teaching you about the sort of technical terms that, relate to the movement of these stars, is so that you better understand what is taking place here. So that depiction that we saw earlier of Hathor, which basically means the house of Ha, you understand, or the far, because Ha means far away, you understand? So Hat house. So the house of Horus, or the far away house, obviously is making reference to this Dendora star map. And it shows you in this depiction at least that she has 46 stars. You can see there again tying into the 46 chromosomes on a human being, or 46 genomes at least. 46 chromosomes on a human being, 23 obviously donated from the mother, 23 donated from the father. And I said, we talked about this earlier based on Robert's question of the importance of those two star constellations, which is why they're aligned with the Great Pyramids in Giza, Orion and Sirius, and their influence. So male energy from Orion, feminine energy from Sirius or Sirius. Yeah. Now, what this is showing us is that the Jesus of 2,000 years ago was not an individual person, but a conjunction. You understand? And we talked about conjunction. So if you don't know what conjunction is, I think go back to part 3, I think it is, of this particular class. But when you're talking about conjunctions, to keep it nice and simple, remember that you're looking at an illusion of planets or stars that appear close together in the sky because of the way they have rotated into position when you're looking from the planet Earth up. So it might look, for example, that in this case Jupiter, the Sun and the Moon are close together in the sky because of the way in which you're looking at it. So when we look at an Orion star constellation, for example, Orion star constellation with its 7-star major star configuration, if we got closer to it, it's not going to look like that. So that's solid. Those solid blobs of light are going to be, hundreds, you understand, 100 million planets, you understand, stars sitting behind it or whatever. But from our perspective, it looks like a nice, simple picture, understood? And so you get conjunctions that take place, or certain events where planets, let's say some like Sun, they appear close together in the sky based on line of sight. You understand? So if you think about something being close to you at one point, and another object being could be 100 meters away from that object, but if you were looking at it, not in terms of line of sight, those objects might look close together, whereas the one behind is much further away. But actually, in distance terms, when you're looking at it, they look a few centimeters from a front-on profile. They look a few centimeters away from each other when that's not in actual reality. So this is what takes place, and these types of configurations can mark a point in time. Remember, the first verse in the book of Lost Records of Time, reads as follows. Yeah, and it says, 1, you must study the skies to know the action of time on Earth. Yeah, the action of time on Earth. So not that time. So time is understood, but the action of time. So these actions enable us at certain points to log and say, hey, this or these, either these sets of events are coming, or we can log that event to know that took place, by way of these configurations. So 2,000 years ago, on 17th of April, 6 BC, yes, a conjunction took place here, which showed Jupiter, the Sun, and the Moon in quite close proximity to each other, and they formed a conjunction, which, as I say, many think that was a star in the east, understood, i.e. the 3 wise men, not understanding that the 3 wise men, as they have it as, is really the 3 kings. The 3 kings is associated with the 3 pyramids in Giza, the 3 major pyramids in Giza, you understand? Which tie in, as you'd be familiar with the 3 central stars of Orion's belt. You understand? Yeah, Al-Nilam, Al-Nitak, and Mintaka. Understood. So basically, that star in the east, yeah, that they're making reference to, or the star that they were following, yeah, the actual thing is that Jesus is that star, or the story behind that symbolism is that star. Revelation 22, verse 16, isn't it? The bright morning star. He's called that. What does a star do, or that bright morning star do when it's on Earth? Well, it starts off in the east, doesn't it? Yeah, and moves over to the west in the form of Atum Reye, yeah, transversing the sky over to Amun Reye in the west. Yeah, Jesus walked on water, as you know, the cosmology behind that. The sun, as its rays hit the surface of the ocean waters, it appears, as I say, like that light is walking on water. So the Jesus they're talking about is the star, yeah, as a son of God. And what is God? Obviously, Psalms 84, Psalms 84:11, memory serves me correctly, it says the Lord God is a son. So you're talking about the son of a son. S-U-N, sons. So this is the hidden mystery which is causing all these problems and confusion in this regard. And as we see here, yeah, in terms of that 2000 year date from Jacob downwards, understood, right down to the birth of this individual named Jesus, or one of the Jesuses in their story, is talking about a certain configuration, as I say, of planets and the sun in the sky at that particular point. And obviously they built certain stories around that. We can see here, they talk about the tree of Mary. So this is reportedly in ancient Egypt, a tree where obviously Joseph and Mary rested, you understand, under, and the tree yielded refreshment in the form of water. Now, when they don't tell you in that so-called story, you know, it's not like they had EasyJet or whatever to make their way, when God told them to make their way from, you know, Nazareth or whatever to ancient Egypt. In the story, it took 7 years. You understand? So, yeah, it's not like they just arrived there day one. So he arrived there, you know, presumably at age 9, then left to come back at, you know, about age 12. So in their story, yeah, you're seeing a number of different events, which the reality of it, you know, simply, whether people accept it or not, but simply ties into, as I say, that birthing, the birth, as I say, of certain events in terms of planetary bodies. Now here it says just that 6 month is the mid-year, or 12 month. June 15th is the mid-month of 30 days of June. Year 1 is both BC and AD, being the 6th month of that year. So again, this interesting point of the middling, yes, as we touched upon earlier, because when you look at, again, the birth of certain special individuals, insofar as the hermaphrodites and hemaphrodites, that middling, in saying that dividing down in that 5th week, that middle point is exactly when that special individual is born, understood? So here we see this midpoint of a year within the symbology around this particular individual. So there was 2 conjunctions in that year, and Molinar is a sort of a researcher or professor, I think, who discovered or certainly advanced this theory that there was a conjunction that took place in and around that time. But he associated that conjunction with what the wise men saw, but our understanding is obviously here that it's not what the wise men saw. That's what the configuration is to Jesus of 2,000 years ago, or the conjunction is. Now you look here, you see here in Wikipedia that those those three stars, which align, the three pyramids, which align with the three stars in Orion, are known as the three kings. You understand? By certain people around the world, or three wise men. Yeah, and so when you tie everything in and see what the Sphinx was looking at, the Leo star constellation, etc., understood this is what is taking place here. The stars. Yeah, we look at the various different descriptions. Now, that may sound strange, but let's look at some other descriptions here to see what's going on. So, you're given a diagram in Lost Records, and you see a number of symbols here built around certain star constellation or configurations, I should say. And they talk about the four angels. Now here, those who are familiar with the Sabaic language can see four A's in the corner here. And we can see that's symbolic of those four messengers. See four messages in the corner, but here the circle is divided up into four sections, each starting with an A. And so in verse 107, it talks about the four corners, east, west, north, and south. And then 108, then one more messenger, angel, which the word messenger means, from the Greek word angelos, it means messenger, rising from the east dawn as a tumray, having the seal of the living Nathar. This also ties into the four sons, Anun-Re, Atum-Re, Atun-Re, and Amun-Re, which we're seeing here in this particular depiction, correct? And we showed that earlier as that. Now, when we go to Revelations chapter 7, yes, verse 1, we see here that it says, and these things I saw four angels standing in the four corners of the earth, holding the four winds of the earth, and the wind should not blow on the earth, nor the sea, nor any tree. 7:2. And I saw another angel descending from the east, having the seal of the living God, and he cried out in a loud voice to the four angels to whom was given to hurt the earth and the sea. Revelation 7:3, saying, hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads. Now, when we look at those four messengers or angels, we can see that the four angels being spoken of, Gabriel, Uriel, Michael, and Raphael, understood. But the interesting one, Anu'n, which we see here, the Anu'n point, we see Gabriel descends down and implants, isn't it, his seed in the story into Mary, or young Mary, and produces this male child called Jesus. Do you understand? So the four sons in the sky now are descending down into this particular woman and producing a son of a son. Yes, a son of a son in that regard, by him depositing. Yeah? Gabriel means man from El. Yeah, excuse me. So we see there, obviously, which the Master explaining here in terms of the symbolism, that the messages obviously were given to the earth was obviously nature reacting and causing much destruction and problems, obviously, on the planet. Now, so we can see here again that when we look at those 12 tribes, or so-called 12 tribes, 12 times 12 times 1,000, which we're not getting into that right now, but 1,000, you know, in our culture has a slightly different meaning. But you can see these 144,000. So the two sets of the 12 signs of zodiac called the 2 sets of the 12 signs of the zodiac called the 12 tribes of Israel. Now remember, it seems Robert asked a poignant question there. Remember, if you take it away from the biblical stuff, the 2 12s, isn't it? Yeah, for the 24, its origin ties back into the two different star constellations, yeah, Orion and Sirius, yeah, as a male and female energy. But obviously, we're connecting us to these to the one Dendora star map. Understood. Now, what do these 12 signs mean? Well, in Revelation chapter 7, I'm going to go through the whole thing, but basically it gives you these 144,000, yeah, and we get the sort of hidden breakdown, but it describes the different natures of personalities of these different tribes. But what happens is that we get a different order, or a different set of tribes than were originally, from the original list. So the original 12 tribes and the one shown in Revelation chapter 7 have changed. So in chapter 7, we get Judah. And we know that's the configuration of Leah. We get Reuben. Understood? Gad. Asher. Yes? Naphtali. Manasseh. Simeon. Levi. Understood? Issachar. Zebulun. Joseph. And we see Benjamin, son of the right hand there. But when we compare the original list from 2000 BC, what do we see here? Well, we see Dan was there. Dan's not in this version. So when we look at the list, and why is that? Because when we're looking at certain star configurations, isn't it? You're looking in the sky, but because of this shift, 72 degrees, the axis of the planet is shifting 1 degree every 72 years, 1 degree every 72 years, and it makes that 360 every 26,000 years. The configuration of constellations in the when we're looking up from the Earth, it changes. So 2,000 years down the line, there's a different group or configuration when looking at the planet Earth upwards. So Manasseh is introduced. You understand? Where he's not in the original list. So the configuration of how it's set changes. The order of how things are, it changes. And hence why we have a different configuration 2,000 years later. This is what's being expressed, with the two different tribes here in that regard. Now remember, even in that, as I say, we talked to you about previously, even then, that number of these, according to their story, a number of these tribes were destroyed. You understand? Say 2 Kings chapter 17. Understood? But the symbolism that you have to understand, and what the master's explaining here, is that the shift that is taking place is down to, as I say, the different constellations now in the sky. This is what you're reading about, of all these different people who we think are real people or real tribes, so on and so forth, where they are not. Birth of Religion does an excellent job of teaching you, as I explained, I touched upon last week, about the fact that here, disappear, and then reappear again. Absent versus seen. And how, as I say, Jesus was here allegedly 2,000 years ago, now disappears, and allegedly is supposed to come back around again to be seen again 2,000 years later. Well, in fact, he told them he'll be back in a short while. A short while is not 2,000 years. Depending on depending on the person's perception of time. But you think about, as I say, we said this last week, Halley's Comet appears in the sky. So we can all see it. 70 odd some years later, so it disappears again. Then 70 odd some years later, it reappears again. You see Gabriel popping up through the ages. Here one time, you see him, disappears, comes back around again in the story. Even God walked with man at one time, isn't it? Yes? All of a sudden disappears. But then it's supposed to be returning. Is it people, or planets, suns, and different cosmology? You see the way the game got played, how tricky everything is, how confusing it is. The spell is deep. Yeah, the spell is deep for those who are placed under it. Now look at this. Manasseh wasn't in the original list, but he was in the new list in Revelation chapter 7. But look at how they did record the story. It says, and Joseph's son by Egyptian woman took place, Manasseh, Genesis 41, 37 to 52. And his dream, Genesis 37, 9. And he dreamed yet another dream and told it his brethren and said, behold, I have dreamed a dream, and behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance to me. They bowed down to me, which is a description of the zodiac. So Manasseh, as I say, he wasn't in the original list. Yeah? Excuse me. But now we find him all of a sudden dreaming prophetically that he will be in this new list of the zodiac. Yeah? No, well, it is a coincidence, but not. So here we're understanding, let's say, this game again. Look at Daniel chapter 2, verse 21, but we read from the verse 120 of the Lost Records of Time. Now it says, this is a lost time they don't understand. When they do, their charts and others think these are people and or a person, when in fact these are the signs of the time. Yeah, so signs of the time, isn't it? Yeah, these planets, suns, different things, comets even, in a certain type of configuration at a certain point in time, so we can mark the time. Now, Daniel chapter 2, verse 21. And he changeth the times and the seasons. He removeth kings. He setteth up kings. He give wisdom unto the wise, knowledge to them that know understanding. You understand? So here, as what we've seen, isn't it? We see a certain configuration in Genesis, and then that configuration changed by the time we got to the same Jesus' book in Revelations. So, as it's explained to you, here Judah is the lion or zodiac sign, a gear, changed to Leo by the Greeks and the Romans, and Tammuz by the Babylonians or Sumerians. The first will be last, and the last will be first, as I said. 123, and you saw the list ended with Benjamin, meaning on my right hand. So this is this kind of hidden mystery that we've been looking at all this time, but not really, as I say, well understood. You understand? But now, when you see it for what it really is, and how many years, you got to think of how many years and how many books, for those of us who were under that religious spell, did it take to remove it? You're talking about over 20 years. Well over 20 years of intensive study needed. And even then, detailed books like Jesus Found in Egypt, The Beginning, Luciferian Conspiracy, there's over almost 1,500 pages of book just in those things, drilling home the same thing. Yeah, to recondition our minds to what we're really looking at here, and getting us, to say, to start re-looking, respecting, and saying re-looking again at what was conveyed to us and what it really means. They're never going to tell you this stuff. Yeah, only your own is going to tell you how it really goes. Yeah, and the type of sacrifices that are needed even to get this information to us. Yeah, because the true keeper of time, that's the one who they're really after. Because they don't want them, for you to understand when certain events are to take place in nature that would aid our transformation, because it's the right time that certain things have to happen, not just having the right qualities of people. That's also important. But it also has to be done at the correct time, understood, for the gateways to be opened. And as even in our story has shown, there have been forces in the back always seeking to prevent that gateway from opening and allowing, as I say, the connection between us and our higher ancestors upon the Dara. Understood? And then crafts to come through, just like they did in the time of the Huti Masas part of the land, or Thutmose the third. Any questions? Final question. That's the last slide.
No questions here.
Well, no questions. We finished at a reasonable time, despite it being Gremlin Day. So, you want to know more about this stuff, go into it. We've left a lot on the table in these 5 parts. And this is how you see, as I say, how detailed when we're really studying, not just reading, when we're really studying how it goes into. Do you understand? And in fact, I'm going to read the final verse in here. I've lost records of time, which I didn't put it on the screen. But it's really important to understand this particular point. So verse 164, it says, all this deal with 2 points and the distinct differences between spirituality and religion. Yeah, I'm updating the words here. Wu-Sabat, or our spirituality, is an overstanding and practice concerned with the realization of forces, visible and invisible deities, alive and dead, but real beings, facts. Yeah? Listen to what he's saying again. Let me say. Spirituality is overstanding and practice concerned with the realization of forces, visible deities, invisible deities, alive and dead, but real beings. So our perception of religion is to see into the darkness, not to be ignorant of the darkness or put it in some hocus pocus, airy-fairy state. It is to always see into the darkness, understand it, make it real, understand it. Yeah, this is what a reasoning ability allows us to do. We've never seen, many of us never met each other's parents, but the result means that we know that you have them. Yeah, and how far you take certain things back. Do you understand? That result means that basically, so if somebody has a thought, for example, a concept, there must have been a receptive and a perceptive thought to birth the concept, because the same pattern of things replicates itself whichever the system, which is why the Master explained to you that in space and out space Nawapians are exactly the same. Now, the rules of in space and out space are exactly the same patterns and configuration. But what does it say about religion per se? It says where religion is an understanding as many organized institutions on beliefs unconfirmed, a practice concerned with non-realization of forces, hopes, wishes, ghosts, invisible gods, only the dead and fictions, not real beings. The business that has evolved out of spiritual realities, faith. Yeah, so as we explained earlier in the book or Master Secret Ultimate Reality, verse 77, do you understand? Is that inspiration and revelations are attributes of reasoning, and in a sense must always be validated against actual facts. Yeah, so there's no airy-fairy, I received this, boom, boom, boom. Of course, we all have different types of spiritual experiences, but you have to ground it in knowing exactly what it is and what you're talking about. You understand? There's no belief system of our ancestors. Yeah, if you can't prove it, it's not accepted. We don't accept things in ignorance. So the realization is you understand on the journey of what this Wu-Sabat spiritual science is seeking to teach you is to walk you back, yeah, from the material world into the world of what you call spiritual world or the world of energy. This is why as animists we start from the soul. They're the point of energy. Not so much personalities. Understood? Yeah, because people get upset with personalities, but when you deal with the soul, you're interested in what was achieved, what was done. We don't know what Ma'at Reye was like as a person, but we know what she done. We know what she achieved. Yeah, the difference between that spirit and soul, isn't it? Yeah, the soul is what she done, what got stamped in time. What she achieved, the greatness that she achieved. We don't know what she was like, whether she was a likable individual, not likable, whether certain people liked her, who didn't like her. Understood? That's not what's been conveyed to us. I'm not saying it's not important. That's not what's been conveyed to us. Understood? So understanding what takes place in the dark, paying attention to the details is critically important for us as Sabaeans. Because the smallest things in our society, or the things which are the smallest things within existence, are the most powerful things as we start to walk and step back. Not the something. It's the nothing that we're walking back into, to true spirituality. True spirituality, as the book says in the final verse, is quantum physics. True spirituality. Quantum physics. Yeah? So, and we understand that those rules, when you're dealing with the quantum world, don't follow the same rules as dealing with the physical world, or the lowest level of vibration. You understand? Nothing, and even to say that is a funny statement, when they say nothing is impossible. If you even think about that literally as a statement, nothing is impossible. But to us, nothing has now become a thing in Wu-Sabat. It's tangible, isn't it? It does exist. It's not nothing to us. It exists. So as we learn more about it, the ignorance dissipates and it becomes our reality. And at a certain point, when we're able to properly transform between energy and matter at will, then we will truly experience that world of nothingness, which appears to be blinded by our senses. But this is the journey. This is the transition from our imperfect self to achieving perfection and all that comes with it. Understood? Yeah, so we've come to the end of these 5 classes. You should understand the Tuli Papyrus. Understood? Yeah, it's about not just about that, but one of the last successful openings of the gateway. You understand? And how we're moving clearly, and in Lost Records of Time, how the time is moving from patriarchal rulership back to the original matriarchal rulership, as everything starts to correct itself back to be in line with natural nature. So that includes us as a people, obviously the planet, you understand, and the sun, as we come or move into a new 24,000 year cycle. So, any other questions? If not, we're going to close out today. Thank you for your incredible patience with our Kremlin issues today, but we got there in the end. So 2 weeks' time, we're back with Freaks and the Perfect Creatures, part 2. And we will build upon this subject and probably do a class on gateways and the guardians as well, just to go to a next level with this. Gateways and the Guardians, I think it's 9 years that class has been out. Today, part 1 and 2. And so it's probably still not well understood by most. I'm not claiming to be an expert on it, but still not even well understood by most. But our whole story, is showing in that diagram. And where we come from and where we're going to next. All right, there's no other questions. Imabab, excuse me. Is there nothing else? If not, we're going to close out. Right, Imabab, any other questions? No? All right, okay. Going once, going twice, 3 times. Appreciate everybody's attendance and your patience today. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Okay? Wadu if you're Sabaean, and Wadu if you're not Sabaean. You just learned a new word today. Take care, everybody. We'll see you soon.